May I have your attention? Notice to the public, if you wish to address the committee, please complete the public wishing to address the council form located on either end of the counter and give it to either the chairman or the council clerk prior to the beginning of the meeting. Individuals addressing the council should be respectful of others in their choice of words and actions. Also, all cell phones, pagers, electronic devices used for communication should be silenced for the duration of the meeting. Also, I'd like to call the Budget and Finance Committee meeting to order, April the 6th, 2009. We'll have an invocation. Everyone, please stand. We'll have an invocation by Mr. Alvin Tillman, Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Joey Seahan. Everyone, please rise.
Once again to give you thanks for your many, many blessings. Father, we're asking and praying that you look over our decisions here, lead, guide, and direct our thoughts. Father, we ask and pray that you shower your blessing upon our parish, upon our nation, upon our country. For these and all blessings, we ask in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Hey, Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Ms. Cavalier. Mr. Seahan. Mr. Hebert.
Here.
Mr. Lambert. Mr. Pizzolata. Mr. Tillman. Mr. Wazan. Mr. Kevin. Ms. Williams. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Item 1 on the agenda is consider authorizing the parish president to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement with the state of Louisiana, Division of Administration, Office of Community Development, Disaster Recovery Unit to implement grant under the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Program through the parish implemented recovery program. So moved. Okay, moved by Mr. Pizzolata. Seconded by Mr. Tillman and Ms. Williams. Seeing no lights, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Against, motion passes. Item 2, resolution concurring with the recommendation of administration approving the purchase of 2 new hydraulic track excavators under provision set forth in the Louisiana Revised Statute Title 39:1701. Moved by Mr. Vazan, seconded by Mr. Lambert and Mr. Pizzolata. Seeing no lights, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Against, motion passes. Item 3, resolution concurring with the recommendation of administration approving the state contract purchase of stationary type generators. Moved by who? Mr. Tillman, seconded by Mr. Seahan. Seeing one light, Mr. Seahan.
Yes, through the chair, who's handling the purchase of these units?
I can help you with some of it, yeah.
Do you know the RPMs of the generators? I don't see it on the list anywhere.
No.
Is there any other backup on it?
Besides what's back there, the description,
Mm-hmm.
that's the descriptions we have. I see like for example, the first one is a 60 kW, 3-phase diesel electronic.
Mr. Bush, any of y'all have any information regarding that, sir?
Greg Bush, Public Works. No, I don't.
No, you don't?
No, we ordered these off the state contract using a state grant to purchase generators. We were more involved with voltage, make sure we had the proper kilowatts and phasing.
Okay, I was just wondering if they were 3,600 RPM or 1,800 RPM units.
I can't answer that tonight. I can certainly email you tomorrow with that answer.
Okay.
Wednesday night, maybe. We'll move the minutes.
Okay, can we hold this until Wednesday?
Oh. Yeah, we can do that. Okay, motion by Mr. Seahan. Second by Mr. Vazan, that we have this information for us Wednesday night. All in favor of the motion? Oh, I have one more light. Mr. Vazan.
Yeah, to Mr. Bush or
Yes, Mr. Bush.
someone, how many generators, how big, or are they all the same? Do we have any information at all before we vote on this?
No, they're not all the same. The grant money came down from the state, approximately $650,000, if I remember correctly. Houma Police Department is getting a generator. Public Works is getting, I think, 2 generators. Another department is getting generators, but that was all handled by Jennifer Gabassi in Planning and Zoning.
Because all the way back into the past administration, I had requested that if and when we did buy generators, that there'd be some consideration to put a generator just to power this second floor unit right here where we're at during hurricanes. In fact, during the last set of hurricanes, as you recall, Mr. Bush, we had people stationed in here without power.
Pat, do you remember if that generator was included in that grant?
That would be nice.
No, it was not included. For this building, we're looking at bringing in a large unit and putting quick connects for the building so we can power up the entire building. That was my understanding.
Portable you're talking about again.
Yes, a large portable, but we'd have them on standby. We wouldn't have to go out and search and look for generators. We have it on standby, and the quick connects would already be in place.
For Ike, apparently, we didn't have any on standby, because I remember us saying we was gonna have one put downstairs, Pat, and I think it showed up like the day after or day of electricity. Tom Berg got juice turned on, I think, before we got a generator.
Yeah, but there's not one scheduled, another generator, a permanent one for this location.
I'd appreciate it if it's possible, Pat, either you or Greg or somebody, maybe get us some information, either email it to each council member between now and Wednesday, preferably tomorrow, so that we can maybe look at this, how many generators, where they're going, and the cost of them, if you would, and make it easier for us to vote on this.
Fine.
Thank you, sir.
Glad
I
to.
think the rental was about 50, 60,000, I believe, for
Oh,
the
yeah.
building, yeah.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not opposed to.
Good. Oh, yeah.
I'm not opposed to us getting,
Right.
the only thing I'd like to know where they're
Yeah.
going and how much we spend on it, and I think Mr. Cian had a question as to what we're buying, you know? Whether the
1 RPMs, yeah.
1,800 RPM or 3,600, that determines, I think, a lot, according to Mr. Cian, the life expectancy of those things, and the maintenance.
Do you want the locations tonight? I can give these to you tonight.
If you could get it to us tomorrow with the rest of that information I asked Jamie, that would be great. Maybe emailing Paul and the rest of the council. It'd help us to be able to vote on this, I think, Wednesday. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Just been noted that we do have information, I think, on some of this stuff.
So,
Yeah,
The
it's,
locations are attached, yeah. But they're not listed, they're just individually on the different pages.
how many are there? Okay. That's what I'd appreciate if they can get it to us in a synopsis.
Yeah, okay, agreeable. Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Against, motion passes. Item 4, resolution introducing an ordinance to declare vehicles, computers, and other miscellaneous equipment from various departments as surplus and authorizing said items to be disposed of by public bid, negotiated sale, junked, or any other legally approved method, and calling a public hearing on said matter on April 22nd at 6:30 p.m. Moved by Mr. Kevin Vazan, seconded by Mr. Joey Sehan. All in favor of the motion, signal lights, all in favor say aye. Aye. Against, motion passes.
Motion to adjourn.
Wait, one more.
You got one more?
Yeah, one
you
more.
gotta have
Item
one.
number 5.
I thought you was on.
No, one item number 5.
Okay, go ahead.
Consider the introduction of an ordinance to amend the 2009 adopted budget and the 2009 adopted budgeted positions as to recognize the funding for the public transit system from the state of Louisiana, Department of Transportation and Development for the weekend and holiday transit bus schedule, and calling a public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, April 22nd at 6:30 p.m. Motion by Ms. Williams, second by Mr. Kevin Vazan. Seeing no lights, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Against, motion passes. I have a motion by Mr. Pizzolano to adjourn. Second by Mr. Kevin Vazan. All in favor say aye. Aye. Against, motion passes.
Already ran through it already, did a dry run.
Is Jennifer
didn't hear anything about, oh, you're talking about, yeah, what Clayton was asking for?
No, no, no. It started with Joey Seahan. He asked, what
Sorry,
RPM?
I was looking for. Define the stag again. I meant to call you, but I've been so damn busy, I hadn't had a
I
chance. I called up the state licensing board. I talked to them. Acting license or a spec license.
In fact,
And
I
if,
found
and if
it.
the job is under 75,000,
75,000.
then they can do it. And I told her, I
Under the
said,
home improvement
look,
contract.
bathroom that you're gonna renovate. I told Jerry, and Jerry. Nan, this is what she told me.
The first time that she rejected the bids was because
And that's what they're upset about. And they say they're not gonna, because they believe that if the town suspects that it had to be a contractor,
should have gone to the next
we should have
bidder,
gone to the next one.
but there was something wrong and I can't tell you what it is. She did tell me that I didn't get
Well,
her
I just
some
told,
trouble.
Can you tell me what the CCC?
See, I knew I'd say that. Clayton's crazy cousin? Yeah, crazy.
something
Because I
changes.
did find it, I was looking for,
Why are you giggling at that? I thought we weren't related. What McCurry keeps saying we're not related. I do. You're all of that, man. I guarantee it. One, two, three, four, 6, what, 7 of us. All cell phones, pages, or electronic devices used for communication should be silenced for the duration of this meeting. Calling the Terrebonne Parish Policy, Procedure, and Legal Committee of April 6, 2009 at 5:45 p.m. to order. We'll have an invocation this evening by Councilman Kevin Voisin, and we'll have a Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Councilman Joey Seahan. Will everyone please stand?
Heavenly Father, we thank thee for this opportunity we have to meet as a council and ask for thy guidance and prayers. We ask thee, Father, to look over us, touch our minds with inspiration, and say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thomas, roll call, please.
Here. Mr. Seahan. Mr. Abear. Mr. Lambert. Mr. Pizzolato.
Here.
Mr. Tillman. Mr. Wazan.
Here.
Mr. Kevin.
Here.
Ms. Williams. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Item 1, Mr. Ed Snyder, representing the Advisory Committee for Disability Affairs, wishes to address the committee relative to closed captioning for TPTV. Mr. Snyder? Thank you, sir. Your name and who you represent, please.
My name's Edward Snyder, and I represent the Advisory Committee for Disability Affairs. What led me to serve on this committee is I have 3 deaf children, and because of that, I've established a lot of friends and acquaintances that are deaf and blind, or hard of hearing. And my desire was to make Terrebonne Parish a better place, not only for people with hearing impairments, but for any other types of disability. So I felt obliged to serve on this committee when asked. Recently, the committee has had discussions regarding closed captioning at the Palace Theater, and right now this effort is ongoing. My personal experience has been is that as we go through our daily lives, we see television broadcasts in different places, waiting rooms, doctor's offices, restaurants, that the televisions are on and there's no closed captioning on them, and most people just take it for granted because they can hear. There's approximately 16% of the population has some form of hearing loss, and this hearing loss affects their ability to clearly understand speech. These numbers are expected to increase over the next 10 years because of the aging population. There are an estimated 30 million people currently using closed captioning. There's kind of a stigma, and I know some of y'all are a little older than me or about my age, and there's kind of a stigma with being hard of hearing or hearing impaired a lot of times. And I know a lot of times people hide their inability to hear everything that's being said, or if it's on a television set, they may just turn it so loud that they aggravate everybody around them. I think a lot of men can probably attest to their wives, you know, turn the dang TV down. And I suggest to anybody that may have this problem, turn your captions on and try it out. It takes a little getting used to, but I think you'll find that once you get used to it, you have a difficult time watching TV without it. And I also recommend that families with small children in the home turn the captions on all the time. There are studies that show that the reading scores in homes that have the closed captioning turned on, the reading scores in their children go up. And then also, the public who are learning English as a second language rely heavily on closed captioning to improve their comprehension and their ability to read and speak English. And as you know, we've had a significant number of immigrants move into our area in the last few years, and these people are trying to learn English. The deaf are not receiving any benefit from the local broadcasts. They're not captioned and are further isolated from society because of their lack of captioning. The hard of hearing are most often not getting the entire or the correct message. Many of us rely heavily, if not totally, on local broadcasts, such as TPTV and HTV, for local information. There are certain regulations by the FCC regarding captioning, and I don't have any clue as to whether this falls under their rules and regulations. But I do believe that we shouldn't have to be regulated to do the right thing. And the right thing would be to provide captioning at every opportunity. Today's technology allows for live captioning through remote connections through the internet and telephone lines. And the turnaround time for videotaped captions being added to videotapes is hours as opposed to days. And I'd be happy to discuss those options with whatever personnel in the department that handles the videotape or the live broadcast. My initial intent was to improve the quality of life for our deaf and hard of hearing residents. The unintended consequences would be that we reach a much broader population. The committee asked that the council make the TPTV channel captioned, and therefore the information provided available to all residents of the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Ms. Cavalier, your light?
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion. We ask Mr. Berg's office to investigate this and come back in 4 weeks with a report stating the cost, the amount of time it would take, and any problems that might exist right now that we'd have to overcome in order to implement this.
Motion's been made by Ms. Cavalier, and unanimous second's been called for that administration have Mr. Berg maybe put some things together for us and respond to this council. And at that time, Mr. Labat, if you'd also respond to Mr. Snyder and that group once we know something. Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Anything else, sir?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. There's a
Thank you,
motion.
Mr. Snyder.
There's been a motion, it's been unanimously second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Cavalier. Item 2, discussion and possible action, I guess, with respect to TPTV and other means of informing the public. Seeing no lights. Mr. Berg, would you like to comment on that, sir?
Tom Berg, Utilities Director. Yes, sir, I think it was, discussion was passed at the last meeting that this was brought up, but at that time, we handed out a schedule that we're currently adhering to on the airing of council committee and regular sessions. And with that, I guess we're certainly open to any suggestions or changes. I think that we email that to everybody as well. So if there's any questions, we'll be happy to entertain those or consider whatever changes are directed.
Seeing one light. Mr. Kevin? Mr.
Thank you,
Wazan?
thank you, Chair, Mr. Chair. Question, just so I'm clear, because a couple of emails passed around and I have the information, but at what time does the normal council meeting show every week? Do you know? I have the schedule. Is that the TLCD meeting? No, that can't be that.
No,
I
sir,
see council
that's the
committee
levy
meeting.
district. There's the regular council. I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry, I didn't bring it. I thought it was.
It's okay. Well,
It was
we have it,
advertised,
but
but
you
I
can't
think it
read
airs on the Thursday night first,
Oh, here we go.
following the council meeting.
Correct. I'm sorry. I see it now.
Okay.
I just got screwed up. I appreciate the effort. So it'll air at the same time all week long, and so when people find it, they'll
Sure.
find it there consistently.
And I think that what I conveyed to the council members is that, you know, obviously establishing a certain time for these meetings to start is a pretty easy thing to do. You know, Thursday at 7 o'clock and Saturday morning, I think it is, and Sunday at a certain time. The problem arises when, let's say, a levy district meeting or even a council meeting or planning and zoning meeting just by chance goes on for about 6 hours. What's the guidance or decision or direction as to the necessary changes in programming as a result of that occurring? Do we cut off that meeting to start the next meeting that's scheduled to start at 7 o'clock? Or do we want council meetings to take precedence and, no matter what's airing and running over, we cut it off? Or if, the council meeting goes long and cuts into another meeting, those are the things that cause problems. It's very easy to set a prescribed time for every meeting to start. The questions are, what do you do when it doesn't fit?
Okay, so you're looking for direction from us as to a kind of a hierarchy of programming. That's what I hear you to say? I'm asking.
Well, the complaint, I guess, that was made was that we don't adhere to a prescribed schedule. We had a prescribed schedule that we adhere to except when there are those kind of programming issues or problems.
Do you know what is there a formula right now that we try to follow, or just for my knowledge again?
Not really in that regard. I think we just try to juggle them all and make sure that try to share the time, I guess, so that whatever meeting it is that's running long or the other meetings all get aired during a particular week.
Okay, great. I would just add for those who are in the audience that we're also moving forward to be able to show at least the parish council meetings and probably work on the other ones, but the parish council meetings by May 1st, I have it on Good Information, will start to be broadcast over our website, at least for the last 4, and that's a great step forward to let people watch it whenever they want, no matter how long it is. So thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Wazan. Mr. Claudia, your light, Mr. President?
Yes, I just wanted to mention, we just recently have completed transferring the actual, well, let's say hardware up to the 7th floor. In a very short period of time, this week or the beginning of next week, we will have Tom's people start training some people in our department. We expect to do some new items on our TPTV to continue to work to update it and upgrade it. In addition to that, Mr. Berg has been working again on trying to do the specifications for redoing this building, and I have under good sources that it's very close to going out for bid. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. And just prior to this meeting, I had the opportunity to speak to Mr. Berg. I think there's a gentleman who has some expertise in that, in television that could maybe help us on a part-time basis maybe or something. And I think the young man that spoke to the parish president and Mr. Berg in the past, and maybe something like that could happen. But maybe just some kind of filler, like for instance, a 3-hour program figure, and then if it doesn't go to 3 hours, have some filler backup to be able to fill that in. But you guys have been doing an adequate job, I think, Tom, with what you had to work with. I really think that you guys have done an adequate job. I think with just a little help, we can make this thing considerably better.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for all you and your staff has done in the past from your location.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Seeing no other lights? No action necessary. Item 3, discussion and possible action with respect to nuisance abatement as it relates to tall grass, derelict structures, fines and penalties, and length of time to address issues. Mr. Kevin Wazan?
Yes, sir. This goes back to our last discussion about what, how to stiffen the penalties and/or change the procedures just to try to make some of this nuisance abatement stick, especially in regards to yards that get 3-4 feet of grass. I think there was a gentleman here from Leveron Street that had presented and sparked this issue. I think that Mr. Pat Gordon has some numbers for us that will tell us, just to set the bar. Basically, there's 3 tiers. Your first offense within 1 calendar year, second offense, and third offense. And I had asked if he would get together some numbers on how often or how many that is to give us some perspective on the matter.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind.
Please do, Mr. Gordon.
Thank you. An individual that is in violation of the nuisance abatement ordinance is given a warning first. And after 5 days, if not corrected, then a citation goes out. And after 10 days of the citation, if they don't rectify the violation, then we send a contractor out to either cut the grass or remove the debris. In some cases, the individuals are there, they live there, and they don't allow our contractors to go on the property. So in those cases, we send that violation to city court. So just to give you a few numbers, in 2008, there were 1,160 complaints lodged with nuisance abatement. And this was concerning tall grass, debris, and things of that nature. And out of that 1,160, 220 were issued citations, which means about 75% of the individuals that received a warning complied with our ordinance. 25% didn't. They were issued a citation. And of the 220, 20 were cited again for the second time within the same calendar year. And only one was cited for the third violation within a calendar year, and 35 were turned over to city court. The first violation is a citation is a $100 fine. The second is a $250 fine. The third is a $500 fine. So as you can see, the warnings take care of the majority of the complaints that come through the nuisance abatement department. Unfortunately, it's the 220 or the 20 that the council hears that they don't comply with, and we have to send citations or send the contractor out and cut the grass. But I think that those are the numbers that we have from 2008. I can also tell you that we've received over 70 abandoned and derelict houses this year already. So there's been a huge influx this year of abandoned structures.
But this may be, you know, in regards to storms and things, obviously, that'll push things. I would say that in looking at the ordinance, and the best recommendation that I kind of came to was we certainly need to increase the minimum from $100, I would say, to $250. I just put this out here for discussion. Again, I'm just trying to push us forward, not saying I think this is the best plan, but for purposes of discussion, I would love to see $250 for the first, $500 for the second, and either $1,000 or mandatory criminal proceedings for the third. It doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of third offense in 1 year. It's almost, when you look at the timeline, it's almost hard to get 3 in 1 year because of the time it takes for all of this to take place. I think that in other years, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Gordon, but other years there may have been as many as 10 third offenses in 1 year.
Yes.
Okay.
There were times.
I mean, 1 is an outlier on the low side probably, but those people, when you're on your third in the same year, it's probably time to move on. So I would just put that out for discussion. That I want to make sure I do this correctly. I'm looking at Paul. How do I have to refer this to the next committee?
Next committee, ask staff to look into it, bring it.
Right, I'd like to ask staff to look into this and to bring back recommendations, including whatever amounts we all agree with. I'm throwing out 250, 500, and either for the third, either 1,000 or the criminal, mandatory criminal, and certainly that'll be amended here. But I'd like to go ahead and direct that to be presented at the next committee meeting. And thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Williams, your light?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Gordon, who sets those fines? We do, or is that some kind of state?
Oh, no, the council does.
Okay.
The council set the fines the last time.
Because I agree with Mr. Kevin that we need to do something to increase this, because it's kind of, to me, people are beginning to take advantage of the fact that all they have to pay is $100 and they can get their grass cut, and they're continuing to do this. And then with these last rain events, we saw that litter is basically a problem that's causing a lot of our drainage issues. I just feel that if we get stricter with our penalties, then people are going to take us more serious, that we're not going to be tolerating, and we have a serious fight against blight. Because I took a ride through certain parts of my district and basically certain parts of this parish, and there are a lot of homes that need to be either condemned or refixed, and people are not. And so in goes drug activity, in goes fires that are increasing because these people go in and do their business, and then end up we have another situation on our hands. So I think that it would be a good idea to increase the fines, because $100 to some is a slap on the wrist, but $250 means we're not accepting the foolishness anymore. So I would support Mr. Kevin's decision, and you know how I am. I feel strong about the situation when it comes to blighted property and tall grass, and I have to admit, your former department is very good at it, and they're quick about getting it taken care of. But I also would like to see that warning day switch from 10 days to 5. When you say they have a 5-day and then they have another 10 days, I would like to see it 5 and 5 if possible. Because if you've been warned, you have 5 days, and then you tell them it only takes a day to cut your grass. So I don't think we should go over 10 days. I would just like to see if you could look into that also.
Be glad to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Tillman, you're
Thank
next,
you,
sir.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I got a different spin on this thing. And of course, administration, you know, if anybody sent up a lot of complaints, I know I do. I send them about the pages. But I don't think that the increase in fine is going to resolve the problem. I mean, as I look at the numbers that you just gave us, those properties that are in question, they don't care one way or another. Whether you give them a $5,000 fine, they don't care. A lot of these folks are properties that you got 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 different people involved in it, and probably never get the money to open succession on it, so they don't care one way or another. I would have to think that in that number, that lower portion of this percentage, I would have to think that a lot of those individuals are in that group of numbers. Okay, so it's not going to do anything to affect those individuals, and that's the people that we're trying to get to. There's no doubt. Now, the other thing is that I think we need to look at our code as it relates to it. I think that a lot of times you have individuals that find a way to get themselves through the system and basically end up not really doing anything and end up back and forth to court, in and out, and man, I'm telling you, get dragged. I got one I've been dealing with for, this is my 3rd term here, and I've been dealing with it for 9 years. For 9 years I've been dealing with it. So I believe that we need to look at revising some of the things that we have in our codes. Now, for example, if you take an individual and you send up a complaint, be it tall grass or junk and debris. Now, that individual go, you warn him and warn him and warn him. That individual go and put up a fence that you can't see it. Then you come back and say, well, he met the criteria, so you can't see it anymore. That's nonsense. We need to clear that type stuff up. And we definitely can't pacify this situation by fines. And I got to tell you, I'm one of those individuals who would love to see something done, but I think until we put some teeth into the language in which we have in the code, I don't think we'll ever get this thing straight. Because when I look at it, if you got an individual and he's in violation, you sent a complaint up on him, and let's say you send that complaint up today, and he get his letter. Now, by the next round, the individual done put up a private fence. Then you would get with you guys and you say, well, put the private fence up, you can't see it. My question is, what about the violation that took place prior to the individual putting the fence up? So we got to close some gaps here first before we do anything. And I think that what we need to do is maybe perhaps call a meeting together with Mr. Gordon and with the planning department, and let's go over our code as it relates to these particular incidents, nuisance incidents. And I think if we do that, then I think we can kind of put some of this stuff to rest. You know, because under no circumstances an individual should be in the system for 9 years and we can't resolve it. Up to this point, still not resolved, and I just used that for an example. You know, individual been to court, in and out of court, and still yet, 9 years later, we haven't been able to do anything with it. So I don't think it's the putting the fine is what we need to do. I think we need to redefine some of the rules and regulations and guidelines as it relates to it. So that would be my suggestion, that we put this matter in committee, get together with the nuisance abatement department, and see what we can do to put some teeth in this thing in terms of the wording of it, because I think that's where our biggest problem is at. And I think as a council person, I think if fines was the answer to it, I'll be the first one up here. Don't give me $250. Give me $1,000 the first one. Give me $2,000 and $3,000. You know, but it's not going to resolve the problem that we have. And the problem that we have is a lot of those individuals are out of town, don't care one way or another. So we need to find a way to deal with that percentage of it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Tillman. Ms. Alcock, your light.
I was just going to point out to the council that the maximum penalty we're allowed to set at a local level is $500. So we may want to consider, like you said, doing $255 and then criminal enforcement or something like that. That's all.
Thank you. Kevin Voisin.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo. I think Mr. Tillman has a great suggestion at the time. That was one of the things I looked at, is the timeline on some of these things. And now some of them may be mandated to be the way they are, and we're certainly not going to dive into all that today. But the shorter they can be, the better this thing turns around, and the more likely we are to enforce. I'm still a big proponent of. I'd like to hire the 250, 500, and then criminal prosecution. But also, one scenario that exists that a constituent of mine brought to my attention is that actually in tax lien situations, let's say that I hold the lien on a property that didn't pay its taxes. The way that the state law is written, it actually encourages people to let the grass grow as tall as possible, because if I control one of those properties and I pay someone $30 a week to cut the grass, I have no way to recoup that money. There's no way to put an invoice against that lien that says that I did that. If, however, I let the thing lapse to the point that it gets a nuisance abatement, it gets a nuisance violation, then that is added to the lien and you can recoup the money. So I've talked to a couple people in tax lien situations who say the state law actually encourages them to do it. They let it lapse on purpose, not because they want to, but it's the only way that they can recoup the cost. I'd like to put forth a motion, if we could, to just write a letter to our state delegation to ask them to look at this and see about if they can close this loophole that exists. I've studied it with my constituent, and it's certainly there, that there's no way to recoup the cost of doing it right. You only can recoup the cost if it goes all the way to a negative result. We may not even need a motion for that. I mean, we may, but I'd like to put forth the motion that we write that letter to the delegation, asking them just to review it, to help with this, because it may be one of those underlying causes for a certain percentage of these that would help.
It's up to you, sir. Either that, or what we can do is ask Mr. Gordon, maybe when he brings it back,
Sure,
to bring back a
that's fine.
suggestion on doing that at that time.
That would be great.
I would just ask for some clarification on that. Are you referring to properties that have been picked up at sheriff's sales?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Correct.
At sheriff's sale,
Yes.
even if
I
you pay
understand.
$1,000, you get a receipt for it. If somebody come back and reclaim the property, they have to pay the $1,000. If you maintain the property yourself or have somebody else maintain it, say $30 or $50 a week to cut the grass, you can't recoup that.
It actually was
Amy, we're very familiar with the situation.
It
I'm
actually
sure you
came
are.
to me by way of a constituent who wanted to cut, he felt bad for the neighborhood, but said, look, I don't know what else to do. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pizzolato, your light, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gordon, again, these houses that stay empty for 2-3 years, they are not accessible because the doors are locked, the windows are in place, but they become a nuisance. And the item 3 of the 14.2 purpose of this ordinance, eliminate conditions which are conclusive to harboring rats, mice, snakes, and other vermins. A house that's empty for 3 years, 2-3 years, has got to be full of roaches and rats and everything else. I'd like for you to look into that so that we can either condemn these houses, even though they're sealed and we can't get into if nuisance abatants can't go in them to see if something's wrong. At least maybe have some kind of way to force the owner to allow nuisance abatements to go in to check for mold and all of the things that are conducive to a health hazard for the neighbors. One great big health hazard is a fire trap, because you have nobody's in there if the place catches on fire. The only time it's, especially in the middle of the night, is when it's too late and the fire department comes and they got to save the house next door. And I got quite a few of these houses in the district, that have been emptied for 2, 3, 4 years, and the owners don't plan to do anything with them. It's back to that same situation. It's a family affair, and this one doesn't want to do it, and that one doesn't want to do it. But the neighbors are being burdened with this vacant house that sits between two nice homes, and they're concerned about mold and vermits and stuff like that. I'd like for you to look into that and see if we can come up with some way that we can force these people to either put the house in a livable condition or tear it down. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Kevin Voisin.
That last thing, the way that I read the law, putting a fence around it was actually a valid way to solve the claim. It actually says you can either fix it or you can put a fence around it. And I think that Councilman Tillman makes a great point that some of the, now look, if it's grass, maybe fence is an okay solution. But some of these other things, putting a fence around it doesn't really fix it. But it's an allowable resolution, at least the way that I read the code. We may want to look at that and either not make it an allowable resolution or maybe limit what it solves. Does it solve, taller grass? Sure, but, a derelict structure or maybe a dangerous vehicle or something in the yard, putting a fence around it doesn't stop the fire hazard. And so we may want to look at that, because the way I read the law, putting the fence around it actually is a one way to fix it, and maybe we should reconsider that. To my colleague's point, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Tillman, your light, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to get some clarification from Mr. Pizzolata as to
Certainly.
a house that's been basically unused for 2 or 3 years. Can you kind of clarify? Are you talking about a house just boarded up and no one is living in the house or haven't been in there for a few years? Or are you talking about a house as such?
I'm talking about a house, thank you, sir. I'm talking about a house that has no utilities going to it. The utilities have been cut off. It has not been lived in for 2, 3, 4 years. The mold obviously takes over, and vermin start getting into the home, and the owners don't want to do anything with it. And we should have some kind of way to get into the home to see if it creates a health hazard for the neighbors. That's what I'm speaking of. Does that help you?
Yeah, that helps me out. I know we have problems out there throughout the parish and particular district that we represent, but I think we got to be very, very careful in where we begin to tread at. Because if you got a house there, and you haven't lived in it for 2 or 3 years, doesn't necessarily mean that the house is unlivable. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's an abandoned structure. Now, if you got a house that's there and it's obviously that the house is abandoned because of the conditions it's in, you can see that from the outside. And if you got a house that the grass not cut, it's not properly boarded up, no one give the house any kind of attention, you can obviously see things happening. But I just don't want us to go here and begin to get to the point whereby we want to deal with these homes that are alleged to be abandoned and just go around, and if a person is not utilizing the house for 2 or 3 years and now you have to do something with that house, I don't think that's a healthy direction for us to take, So I just want us to be careful. I think it's worth looking into, but I just want us to be careful on how we begin to thread toward trying to resolve, the problems that we have as it relates to derelicts. I just want us to be careful with that. And like I said, by all means, if anybody knows, there's no harm about stuff like that. But I don't want to begin to infringe where we don't need to infringe. So I just want us to be careful on where we tread. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Tillman. Ms. Cavalier, your light.
I'd like you to see you do away with the whole fence deal. I got a house in Oakshire that they put up the fence because we told them if they put up a fence, this is years ago, when the fence fell down for the hurricane, there were 6 vehicles in the backyard. DEQ came in. I mean, we got a hazardous waste site now. And the people who had the only 2-story house on the street, they had been telling me because they could see over the fence from the 2nd story. So I'd like to see the fence go completely away. If you're going to live in a subdivision type setting and you have property that is next to someone who is taking care of theirs, then you should accordingly. And when you live out in the country and you got acres and acres, hey, have your own little, artistic junkyard or sculpture garden, whatever you want to do with those vehicles. When you live in a subdivision, that's just too close. So I say do away with the whole fence deal when you're doing your research. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Labonte, had you requested a motion be made, or just,
It was the council's option. The request, I think, is pretty clear, but if y'all want a motion, we could incorporate that into a motion.
well, I was just wondering if you had suggested that to Mr. Kevin.
I did,
was,
that's
and,
correct.
But, and, do we have a motion on the floor now, ma'am?
No second.
And I didn't get a second earlier, that's how come I'll bend the rules a little bit and ask for Kevin had asked our administration to look into the nuisance abatement program and come back to the next policy procedure and legal committee, I think with those recommendations. And also, I think Mr. Gordon, he had asked to incorporate whether or not, or should we devise a letter to our local legislators to change possibly state law. Thank you. Motion by Mr. Kevin Voisin, second by Ms. Cavalier. Seeing no other lights on the matter, all in favor? Those opposed, motion passes. Thank you all. Motion to adjourn. Mr. Tillman, second by Ms. Williams. Seeing no lights on the matter, all in favor? Those opposed, motion passes. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Next meeting in 3 minutes.
Yeah, I already did.
Oh, no kidding.
How you doing? What's the plan here? $1,000 thing works. It's based on a 25.
Message, it's not to be visible.
I think the fences are great.
I do too, man.
You know, they got a couple of them down in their district where they started having junk on them. Yours. They put a fence up and it's 100%.
Go out of the ditch into the empty reservoirs.
Maybe 20, 30 vehicles. Put the fence.
What I'm asking is that
That's not my right.
It's high enough to cross Jefferson Davis.
there's a lot that makes a statement about boarded up hop. Yeah, I got friends who's got houses like. Don't let anybody hide nothing behind the fence. And actually, all states that either cleaned it up or because it.
Well,
what you doing your property.
That's
Having our house redone right. And the water came up with.
They do.
no. Can't complain. Can't complain either.
I mean, I know Matt.
Somebody complained to me about that building. I didn't know that.
Who's that for?
Terrebonne Parish.
Oh, that's ours?
Evidently, we bought that when we bought a right away. I mean,
no.
about the,
No, that's, oh, I know. That's the
Yeah.
old crab back.
yeah, the live oak seafood.
Yeah, seafood. Yeah, I remember.
But
You know, we've been trying to sell that for I don't know how long.
I know, but
I wonder why we didn't sell that. The one on Poinsett.
Pat, are we responsible for cleaning it up?
Hey, if they file a complaint, you know,
We get the hurricane. We still got them on contract. The
well, seems to me that, you know, maybe we ought to get.
Aerodome.
Well, yeah, if we, I wonder if you. Yeah, I'll call him and see if that's a project.
See, some people had complained to me that live down there about, everybody's trying to fix up, and they said, man, this place. And then one of them told me, he says,
Been
man,
like that for 10 years.
huh?
Been like that for 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. And well, it got worse with the hurricanes because
Well, I remember, somebody
it
else.
put all the floaton material in there.
Oh yeah, look at that. Oh,
You see?
man, did it?
That's from the two hurricanes. They put all the floaton. And
That's a nice piece of property too.
oh yeah. And
I wonder
you
why we
see,
can't sell it.
I mean,
I wonder if we just put a big for sale sign.
well, that's all I would be interested in is cleaning.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down. I'm gonna look into that tomorrow. Let me see. Hey, what's the address there, Pete? Let me see.
Notice to the public, if you wish to address the committee, please complete the public wishing to address the council form located on either end of the counter and give it to either the chairman or the council clerk prior to the beginning of the meeting. Individuals addressing the council should be respectful of others in their choice of words and actions. Thank you. All cell phones, pages, or electronic devices used for communication should be silenced for the duration of the meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Public Service Committee, April 6, 2009. Have an invocation by Ms. Williams and a pledge by Mr. Abear. Please stand.
We're asking that you give us guidance from on high as we make decisions that are affecting this parish. We ask that everyone would have an open mind and an understanding that we can all work together as one and get this job done complete. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Lear, Mr. Sehan,
Here.
Mr. Abear.
Here.
Mr. Lambert. Mr. Pizzolato.
Here.
Mr. Tillman. Mr. Wazan. Mr. Kevin. Ms. Williams. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Item 1, Mr. Earl Hicks, Airport Director, wishes to address the committee relative to road conditions regarding Aviation Road. Mr. Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and ladies and gentlemen of the council, allowing us to visit with you here tonight. I have basically two things I'd like to discuss with the council tonight. Number one is, first and foremost, thank you very much for helping the airport with the repairs on the road. A little earlier, I had a discussion with Mr. Blanchard, and he tells me that Repairs are going to get underway this week or very shortly, and I certainly want to thank him and each one of you for helping us with that. A little background on the road. The road was built in the late 60s. It was built at the time for light traffic, mainly because there wasn't a lot of businesses on the road at the time. And the road's about 3,000 feet long. One of the problems is, in addition to the fact that it wasn't built for heavy traffic, is that it's a dead-end road. When you get down to the end of it, you have to turn around and come out that way about 99% of the time, unless you're going to other places on the airport. At the time, it really wasn't traveled too much either. The only two businesses, now there's about 5, mostly aviation businesses in the form of fixed-based operators, which we refer to as FBOs. So now, in addition to it being a lightly traveled road, there's heavier vehicles that use the road now. So the road really needs to be reconstructed. The fact that you continue to repair the road simply isn't going to work, and it's not going to hold up. What the council might consider is a reconstruction of the road. Understand that there's some stimulus money coming down our way. You might want to consider, and when you develop your grant, and the Airport Commission would ask that you would consider including the aviation road in the many roads and bridges improvements that you have on your agenda. And the aviation road certainly, I think, should be considered. It's not gonna go away. The road is only gonna attract more businesses. And probably in the last 5 years, there's been a significant increase in the number of businesses that are established along the road, and it's only gonna increase as time goes on. What we might consider, and what you might want to think about, is any way that the Airport Commission could help you or could assist you in developing the grant, how we might be involved, what we might be able to do to help you. And certainly the Airport Commission would certainly want to do that. One of the things I think that I learned recently was that the 75 to 120 day period to get ready for grants or to be shovel ready has gone away, and now that time frame has been expanded. It's a lot longer. We should give everybody a lot more time to develop the information they need, and certainly this would help us. So, as I said, I'm not going to be very long. I would hope that you would take this into consideration, and I want each and every one of you to know the Airport Commission certainly thanks you for the quick response, and in particular the work that Mr. Blanchard and Mr. Bush did in helping us with the road. And anything we can do in any way, shape, or form to assist you, certainly we're ready to do that. And again, thank you very much for your help.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. All right, no action necessary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, before we move on, I'd like to recognize Mr. Roosevelt Thomas with the Terrebonne Parish School Boards in the audience tonight. Thank you, sir. Okay, item 2, resolution providing for the acceptance of work performed by Fortis Construction Company in accordance with the Certificate of Substantial Completion for modeling and improvements of the 11B system channels, Phase 2, 6-foot ditch at LA 182 Northwood to the intersection of St. Louis Canal with the CCC ditch project. Moved by Ms. Cavalier, second by Ms. Williams. Mr. Pizzolata.
Thank you, Mr. Cian. Through the chair, Mr. Bush, would you please come forward? I think you saw the letter that the lady wrote about striping the road.
Yes,
We are going to get that done.
as part of the project, yes.
Yeah. Oh, this contractor has to
No,
start?
not this contract, the next contract.
The next contract.
Correct.
And if you notice, when you cross the St. Louis Canal on the right-hand side, I think we need to get some riprap in there before we lose that road. We only got about 4 feet before it goes to the water.
You're talking on the Hollywood?
Yes.
side? Okay.
Yeah. As soon as you cross the St. Louis Canal going to 182, it's getting real close to the road, and I think you need to take a look at it and not appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Pizzolata. Thank you, Mr. Bush. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, resolution ratifying Parish President Michelle Claudet's appointment of the firm of Shaw Coastal Incorporated to provide engineering services for the Lower Ward 7 levee project and also authorizing the execution of the appropriate engineering contract documents for this project. Moved by Mr. Lambert, second by Mr. Tillman and Mr. Abear. Cavalier?
Yes, I have a question. Mr. Gordon, during the last administration, I remember the discussion going on about this part of the levee, and there was engineering done on this part of the levee. I would just like somebody to explain to me why we have to re-engineer. I mean, this is now 2 engineering firms that are gonna make money off of this one part, and that's always the complaint of the people, that we do so many engineering studies on projects before we actually get them. And I remember there were concerns made at the time that this part of the levee was not gonna be to the same height as the rest of the Ward 7 levee.
It's my understanding that, oh, I'll yield to the parish president.
Okay, Mr. Claudet?
Ms. Cavalier, it's my understanding that when we did elevation just recently, that some of the elevations were actually less than 6 feet in the lower portions of that levee. It was engineered, that's absolutely correct, but in order to bring it up to the 8-foot elevation that we have, we needed someone to actually prepare contract documents and other things, and it was my understanding from this that an engineering firm was necessary in order for us to do that. Now, quite honestly, I don't think it was just a normal maintenance because of the amount of the contract documents. I think it's going to require more than that for us to go out to bid. Mr. Bush would be able to answer that better than I.
Greg Bush, Public Works. This firm will be doing cross-sections to bring the levee back to 8 feet. The levee has actually settled, and as it's settled, the toe of the levee has expanded out somewhat. So you have a 5 to 6 foot height at the top, but that toe of the levee that used to be where it was has now expanded. So the new engineering firm has to take, and we've already done the surveying, has to prepare the new cross-sections, then prepare the specifications and the contract documents.
There was no guarantee, no, I mean, I know you don't get warranties with these levees, but since you had 2 different companies that did this levee, because when I rode that levee, you saw where this part began. I mean, it has been noticeable that there's a difference in height for a while now. This isn't just something that occurred. And my question is, if I do a project, shouldn't I have to, back that project up? I mean, we just keep throwing money. I mean, to me, we paid for an engineering study, and that engineering study said, do it this way. It got done or it didn't get done. Time will tell. And time's telling, it didn't get done. And now we're gonna go pay engineers some more money. We're just throwing money after this. And how do we know this one's gonna work? What caused it not to work? That's what I'd like to know, because the rest of it didn't sink like this part sunk.
Probably excessive settlement. I certainly can't answer for the first engineer. I wasn't here then.
Right.
I can certainly go back to them and ask for an analysis. We chose this particular engineer because they've done the rest of the Ward 7 levee.
Right.
And we wanted one engineering firm for the entire levee.
Are we looking at the cost to be comparable? I mean, are we like going back to zero?
No,
Are we looking at the cost?
No,
Okay.
we're not going back to zero at all.
All right.
You have that base 5 foot. We will do some geotech to make sure that everything is good, and then this firm here will make the recommendations, and then we'll go from there.
There were people who came and said that the type of mud being used for that part of the levee, that the pipes that were crossing through that levee, there were more pipes because private owners had pipes going through there. The oil companies had pipes going through there. I'm just at a loss of what's going to change. What's going to keep that from happening again?
That's a good question.
In this project. And then, in another 6 to 7 years, we're going to have people coming up here, another council will be sitting here, and, we'll be asking them to do another engineering study on the same section.
Now, I will certainly take your concerns back to the engineering firm.
I definitely know that levee has to be raised. I mean, it was supposed to have been raised and built to specifications that, at that time met the specifications that the rest of the levee is at. Because from what I understand, it was at the right height. So, I mean, I just hate, putting engineering services again on the same piece. But I mean, I'm gonna vote for this because, you know, the people, they need their protection. But please,
I certainly will.
thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cavalier. Thank you, Mr. Bush. Seeing no other lights, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, resolution allowing the Public Transit Division to lease advertisement space on public transit assets. Moved by Ms. Williams, second by Mr. Kevin Wazan. Mr. Clayton Wazan.
Thank you, sir. Who's handling that, Pat? Mr. Bush? How is this handled, Mr. Bush? Is it bid out to different people who bid on the locations to advertise? Or is it first come, first serve?
It's intended to be first come, first serve.
Is there a price set for like different types of assets that we
Yes,
post advertisement?
Included in your package should be the complete cost schedule, depending if they want to go on a bus, want a shelter, or a bench. It also has time frames if they want to go over an extended period of time.
And there's a standard contract?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir. If I may, to legal, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Ms. Alcock, have you studied the contract, and is that all, or did you write the contract?
They sent it to me for review, and I did review it.
And to your knowledge, everything is?
Yeah, we're taking over. It used to be formed out, and I think they had some difficulty finding somebody to handle the program, so now they're going to be handling it in-house, and it's complies with our federal guidelines.
Okay, that was the question. Thank you, I can support it.
Thank you, Mr. Wazan, Ms. Alcock. Ms. Cavalier?
Yes. In the past, Mr. Bush, the agency that had the contract, they were in charge of grass cutting around their actual benches
That's
that they
correct.
put out. Is that gonna be included in this next contract?
No, actually, that was.
Because they didn't do it.
That's why they were terminated.
Okay.
We actually hired a maintenance man within the transit division, and he has a regular scheduled route where he does the trash pickup, cutting the grass, trimming, and things like that.
If we see where this company starts following the past company and they're not living up to their end, can we terminate the contract, or do we have to follow out for the time span?
No,
as
this
listed?
company is your transit division within Department of Public Works.
Okay, so we're not going with an advertising company at all?
No, there's no company.
Okay.
It's all internal parish employees.
All right. Now, who determines what's offensive and inoffensive as far as, you know, the advertising?
That was lined out in the guidelines in your backup. And,
Right.
Ms. Alcock had some concerns about that, so we worked that back and forth several times to make sure we had it worded properly. It also meets all the federal guidelines.
Okay. Such things as tobacco, alcohol, any of these things, that would be allowed on these bus stops?
Wait a minute. Is Yolanda here?
What about tobacco?
I need some help here.
All right.
Yolanda Scott Reed, Public
Hi.
Transit.
Hi.
It depends on the advertisement of the tobacco as well as alcohol. If it's like to send a message, then it can be. But if it's promoting, if they're actually out there trying to like sell,
Okay.
that we're not going to
Good,
allow it.
good. Also, the pictures, how do we determine what's offensive and not offensive? I find that the hot mama sign is offensive on Tunnel Boulevard, and I know a lot of people don't. And, you know, that's a matter of opinion, but I don't want to see hot mama on the bus deals, and you got young girls sitting out there waiting for the bus. So who determines that? And that's what I'm getting at is that's my opinion, and other people have different opinions. So how are we going to decide what, you know, I come in and I have a business and I have this picture, you know, this marketing group has, you know, made up for me, and I come to you. Who is the person that makes that decision?
It will be myself as well as the administrator for public transit. And then if the advertiser has a problem, if we decide we won't advertise it, then it has to go to our advertising committee. And then from there, they decide, they have the final decision from there.
And who makes up the advertising committee?
Public Works Director, Problem Solver, and, three of them, right?
5.
There's actually, 5 of them. And I
Okay.
just forget all the titles right now.
Okay. I would just like to see, anytime we, do something like this, that we,
It's actually it's included in that package, the name of the ones that decides on it.
I would just like us to remember, though, the demographic makeup of our community. We are not, an urban setting such as a large city, San Francisco, New York City or something that would be allowable there, might infringe on someone's opinions here. So, as the committee, if, I'm sure that if something is offensive, we'll hear it. And so I just want to know who we're supposed to call. So, Yolanda, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Cavalier. Mr. Tillman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question for Mr. Bush or Alana, whichever one can answer, since we're on this topic. Mr. Bush, over on the corner of Prospect and Main Street, we have one of our stopping points, and there's a large pile of trees that are cut there. And I noticed that some of it was removed a few months ago. I would assume that the state moved it, but we need to get something done with that. We need to get that debris away from there. I think it's very, very dangerous for the people who utilize in that particular stop, that people can actually hide behind all that debris that you have there. So we need to kind of like get that done ASAP and get that stuff out of the way.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Bush.
Thank you, Mr. Tillman. Thank you, Mr. Bush. We have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 5, resolution authorizing the execution of change order number 1, balancing for the construction agreement with Byron E. Talbot Contractor Incorporated for modeling and improvements of the forced drainage project 11A Drainage Improvement, Phase 6, Bayou Cane Improvement, project decrease of $472.18. Moved by Mr. Kevin Wazan.
Second.
Unanimous second. Mr. Wazan?
Yes, a decrease in
Yeah. Okay. Got one light. Mr. Kevin Wazan?
I just had one question, if you permit me, to Mr. Bush. Although I'm obviously in favor of this, it looks like a piece of that project, there's the grading there on the bridge that kind of weeds out the garbage there. It looks like a piece of that is missing. Do you know, is that the project's designed? At one point, I thought it was grading all the way across the face, but now I see a gap.
That gap's there because they had to remove that section for the dredging machine that came through with a different,
Okay.
because they actually had the hose from the dredge.
Right, I remember, but now the hose is gone and the gap is still, do you know?
They will put that back.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure, I didn't know if it got washed away or.
No, that thing's bolted down.
Sure.
Both the bottom.
It just disappeared and I didn't see, I'd never seen it, so I just wanted to make sure. Thank you, Mr. Bush. I didn't know maybe someone had stolen it, but I appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Wazan. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, resolution authorizing the execution of balancing change order number 1 for the construction agreement with Byron E. Talbot Contractor, Inc. for the Country Drive Right Turn Lane Project, increase contract days by 14 days and increase the contract amount by $7,622.76. Moved by Mr. Lambert. Second by Mr. Clayton Wazan. Mr. Lambert?
Yes, sir. Mr. Bush, please. Could you give us a little update on this, the increase on the days and the price on the job, please?
We had to add 2 additional pay items to the contract. One was for removing 2 guy wires on an existing power pole, and it was located within Energy's right-of-way. And pay item number 2 was for work associated with relocating an existing water meter that crossed 2 different properties. In order to make the traffic geometrics work, that had to be done.
Right. And everything's, y'all did the inspection on it and everything came out okay on the turn lane, correct?
Yes, we did the inspection. And I believe the punch list items have been corrected.
Right, yeah, and that's coming up late. Thank you, Mr. Bush.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Ms. Cavalier?
Mr. Bush, when this project was let out, was it bid? Was it a bid, this project?
Oh, definitely.
It was. Well, when these people bid on this, don't they usually go out there and look at the actual place? I mean, these guide wires didn't just appear. Is it, what I'm trying to get at is it possible that they bid knowing that they would have to come back with a change order and it would make their bid higher maybe than somebody else who had a lower bid?
No, we knew the wires were there. It was an option, and Energy is the one that gave us a choice. They could do it, or our contractor could do it.
Okay.
And if the Energy did it, then the whole project would have to wait until it fit their work schedule. If we agreed to have the contractor do it, then we get the turn lane done as quickly as possible. So we chose the lesser of two evils, and we went ahead and paid the contractor to do the work. We had always planned to do it. It was just a question of who could do it and who could do it in the most timely manner.
I would like in the future then, when we have things that we know are gonna happen like this, and we're gonna have a choice, that be included when we're looking at the price at the beginning.
Okay.
I mean, because these increases, what it says to the public is, you can come back and you can say, I'm gonna extend this, and I, want 7,000. And after a while, those 7,000 start adding up. And I mean, what I'm trying to say is, it doesn't say to the public that we are being good stewards with this money if we just approve a $7,000 increase. If those wires were existing, we could have put and said there may be an increase because wires may have to be removed.
You would have paid Energy the same amount of money anyway. It just would have taken 4 months.
So
And
this
Mr.
seven,
Lam- and
the
then I'd be answering
7,000
Mr.
was included in the original
was
bid.
in the budget for the project.
In the budget for the project, but when these people bid on these projects.
It was not included in their bid because Energy was supposed to do the work.
Okay.
When we found out
That's
that-
what I want to know. See, now you're explaining to me.
Okay.
Then you explain it to the public. And that's what I want the public to know.
Right, it was a choice of Energy doing it and paying them and waiting when they could do it at their convenience. And I'm not putting Energy down.
No.
Heavy schedule too.
Okay.
Or the contractor said, I can do it for the same price, or roughly the same price, and we do it right away. Well, obviously, I'm gonna do it right away if I can, because I'd rather answer questions from Mr. Lambert than you in some
Right.
cases.
Well, I just want,
please, I'm
how many
only
times
joking.
but how many times y'all come up here, we have an increase. We have an increase. Like, Councilman Varsan said, I'll unanimous second any decrease, okay, we can see. But anytime we have an increase, because after a time, you start to see where there is a pattern that emerges.
Oh, I
and
agree.
anytime we got an increase in time, we got an increase in amount of money. And I just feel that a lot of times when you're making a bid, you know things that are existing, and you say, well, I'm just gonna tack it on to the end.
Believe
And
me,
I want people to know that we're watching out for that.
I don't like increases either, because I don't want to have to come up here and explain each one.
All right, okay,
I'd much rather have unanimous on the decrease.
thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cavalier. Thank you, Mr. Bush.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, if you know.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 7, resolution authorizing the execution of change order number 1 for the construction agreement with Sea Level Construction, Inc. for the Barataria Avenue roadway and drainage rehabilitation, Phase 2, Canal Street improvements, and Little Bayou Black Bulkhead. Project increase of 7 contract days and contract amount increase of $14,570. Moved by Ms. Williams, second by Mr. Clayton Wazan and Mr. Alvin Tillman. Ms. Williams?
I just want Mr. Bush to explain to the public why we're doing the increase.
This is for an unforeseen circumstance. As you know, this pipe's been in the ground for many, many years. When we actually excavated and found the pipe, we found corrugated metal pipe that actually connected to concrete pipe. The concrete pipe, unfortunately, was right at the edge of the building where we're doing the work. So the corrugated pipe had to be pulled out of there, and we have to get in, and because of the location of the building, we have to connect a new pipe to the concrete pipe. Because the hole is only a certain size, and we needed approximately 30 to 35 feet of pipe, now we have to cut the pipe into 2 sections in order to fit it into the hole and get it back to the concrete pipe where the building is. So Sea Level, I think, gave an excellent price for the work that has to be done. The corrugated metal pipe was totally deteriorated. It was rusted out almost halfway from on the bottom all the way. We're going to use steel and then weld it once it gets inside there, and then use a mastic to get it to go with the concrete.
Thank you, Mr. Bush, and just as she said earlier, whenever it's an increase, it is best to just explain it to everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, resolution authorizing the execution of change order number 3 for the construction agreement with Lowland Construction Company, Inc. for the Concord Road Drainage Improvements Phase 3 Flood Control Improvements Project, increase of 40 contract days and contract amount increase of $18,333.44.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Kevin Wazan, second by Mr. Clayton Wazan. Mr. Kevin Wazan.
I think I finally found an increase I really am excited about. So I'd love you to explain this one. I want to compliment the contractors ahead of time. They got me out there to see it, and anyway, go ahead, Mr. Bush.
Actually, this change order would have started at $28,123. However, the contractor is giving us a credit in the amount of $9,790 for what he actually bid. And now we'll have all 3 pumps on the same fuel system by doing it this way. So I think the pump station overall will be in much better shape, as you said, and I think it's a well-warranted change order.
I just want to, we beat you on the head when you mess up. I'm going to give you a pat on the back. Somebody had the presence of mind while they're building a new pump to say, hey, these old pipes are leaky. They may be a problem in 5 years or in 3 years. Why don't we switch it out with now? And I will tell you that that's the kind of thinking that's going to keep us dry and move us in the right direction. This costs a little more money, but we get 10, 15, 20 years worth of value out of this, of a pump station's pipes not breaking during a storm. So thank you very much, and I support this wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Mr. Wazan. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 9, resolution authorizing the execution of change order number 2 for the construction agreement with Civil Construction Contractors, LLC, for the Hurricane Ike levee repair project. Contract amount increase of $23,618. Moved by Mr. Lambert, second by Mr. Clayton Wazan. Mr. Lambert?
Yes, sir. Mr. Bush, you want to,
Yes, please.
talk with me?
The original scope of the contract did not envision this much marsh grass on top of the levees. The intent was to push away any of that marsh grass onto the unprotected side and then go ahead and make the repairs. However, when the contractor got to the Mayfield levees, approximately 5.5 miles, we found between 2 to 3 feet of solid overgrowth of this marsh grass. That was beyond the original scope of the contract. He requested a change order, and I'm recommending the change order to the council tonight, to be fair to the contractor.
It's, the Pointe-aux-Chenes levee was like that too, pretty much.
To a degree, but he agreed to do that,
Right.
so
Right,
I think
yeah.
this is fair.
Yeah, right, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Bush.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Ms. Cavalier?
How do you just justify that 5.5 miles is $23,000? I'm not questioning you. I'm trying to understand the process.
The original intent of the contract was to restore damaged sections of the levee. So we had areas that had scoured out, and we used a cubic yard basis where they had to make a rectangle or a square, and then the repair would be by cubic yards. In some cases, if it's sloughed off, the first option was to pull material back if he could. If not, then we'd use a cubic yard by, again, outlining the area and then restoring material to that area. As part of those costs, in order to get to the damaged areas, he would clear any debris and throw it on the unprotected side. The only exceptions were if it was white goods or tires or other type materials like a house, then he would remove those items to a pre-staged location and we'd pay him per line item. So the actual marsh grass was part of his bid to do the cubic yards for the repairs of the levee. In most cases, we had done a complete inspection of the levees, so we had a good idea of what work he had to do. In this case, the marsh grass was so thick, we couldn't actually determine what was underneath of it and how badly it was damaged. That's why I thought, again, it was be fair to the contractor to remove all this marsh grass for us. We'll then identify what has to be repaired, and he'll repair it at contract cost.
And when you talk about marsh grass, that is not anything that's similar to what we see growing in this area. That is I want to know why you're calling it marsh grass and you're not just calling it grass.
Yeah, flotons.
Okay.
It's a combination of items.
I'm asking these questions because there are people that live near me that have no idea what this is about, just like
And-
I don't.
Right, and it's not simply, he can't simply just push it off. Before he pushes it off, he has to determine that there's no materials inside those clumps that would be considered either hazardous or, again, a tire, a propeller, things like that. So before he just pushes it off, it has to be clear.
Thank you. I want the rest of this council to know I am not questioning the need for any of these projects. I have questions, and if I have questions, that means there are 10 other people sitting at home that are thinking the same thing. Because when I look at 5.5 miles, I think of cutting the interstate 5.5 miles. And if you want to pay me $23,000 to go do that, I'll gladly do it with my little John Deere, all right? But when you explain what you just explained to me, I wouldn't do that for $23,000. The mosquitoes down there, I mean, that warrants that amount, okay? And I would just like to know, so I just want people to know that when I'm asking these questions, I'm asking questions that I think everyone is sitting there, because this has become something that people are watching on TV. And you get questioned in the Walmart, Rouse's, they want to know, why didn't you ask this question, or why did you ask this question? So when I'm sitting here and I have these questions, and Mr. Bush is knowledgeable, and he explains very well. So I have no problem with this increase after that explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cavalier. I have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 10, resolution providing for the acceptance of work performed by Byron E. Talbot Contractor, Inc. in accordance with the certificate of substantial completion for the Country Drive Right Turn Lane project. Moved by Mr. Lambert, second by Mr. Clayton Wazan. See no lights, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 11, resolution authorizing the execution of change order number 1 for the construction agreement with Philway Contractors Incorporated for the Upper Ward 7 levee reconstruction Phase 2A, emergency phase, north of Bayou Neuf to South Central Boulevard project, increase of 29 contract days and contract amount decrease of $155. Moved by Mr. Clayton Wazan, second by Mr. Lambert. Seeing no lights, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen, that was in my district. Item 12, discussion and possible action with respect to the drainage conditions in Wallace, Thibodeau, and Southern Estates subdivisions. Ms. Cavalier?
Yes, sir. With the rain that we had in the past week, we all know about the flooding that occurred, and a large amount of it was in my district. I put Wallace, Thibodeau, and Southern Estates subdivisions on the agenda tonight because while we did have an inordinate amount of rain, these two subdivisions have issues with their drainage systems. This was sent to me by one of the residents, and what really alarms me about Southern Estates subdivision, starting with that one, is the people cannot leave their homes during this last rain we had. But when we have rain, we have pooling because the road, the elevation slants. Now, some background on this. This was developed before I ever came in office as a private, kind of like, the lakes issue. And then the parish adopted it. So we got it after they had, put in what they wanted. And now we have the upkeep and maintenance. But we have issues on Sugar Plum and on Sugar Lane, and it's in the same areas. While we got the rain filling it up, the large amount, we also have a problem with just on a rain that the water pools in this area. And there has to be something done to the drainage, just for a regular everyday, rain. Because before this, we had those two rains back to back, and we had water on the street, and we shouldn't have that in this situation. The CCC ditch is on the agenda as the next item, but I had originally said that we put that. It did contribute to this problem, but on, just like I said, a normal rain event, I have water in the streets, and this is a new subdivision. So I need some guidance, and I need some direction, from engineering. So if Mr. Bush could tell me anything he knows right now.
I don't have much information right now except some elevations.
Okay.
I need to go out there with my people and look at it, and I promise you I'll do that. I was not aware of this particular problem until you emailed me the pictures.
There are some residents here from the subdivision, so I would just like right now to ask them if anyone would like to, that lives in this area, if they would like to come up and maybe give us some addresses. I sent pictures, and none of them are coming up on Mr. Labat's computer, the other pictures. And it had a street sign, so we would know the address. I'll be glad to meet with you, Mr. Bush, and show you where the water began. When I went down there at 8 o'clock on, what was about 8:30, on the Friday morning, I couldn't get past a place. You had to have a large dually to get through there, and it created a wake. And these are some very nice homes with very nice landscaping, and if it weren't for the landscaping, people would have had water in their homes. I do not know how many people actually got water, but I know that both roads were impassable. But the back was high, and the front was high. There's a dip, and we need to do something about that dip.
Okay.
So, 2 weeks, Mr. Bush, you can report back.
2 weeks, okay.
Okay, if you don't mind, would anyone like from the subdivision to come up and speak? If you'd like to, this is the opportunity.
Hi, Becky Backnell, 385 Sugar Plum. That is my house up there. It went in my garage. It didn't flood the house, and I don't think any houses in the subdivision did flood, but it was very close in a lot of garages. But normally the garage is like a step down from, your actual house, so it was very close. I do know from what I hear on Sugar Plum, on the first block, it didn't flood, but after that first block on back, and I don't know how far to the back it flooded, but from what I hear, it's just the middle of the subdivision. And on Sugar Land, which is the other street, the front of that street flooded as well, on through to the middle of the street. But I mean, I couldn't even get out of my house and come to work that day.
Exactly.
So it was pretty bad. And despite the fact that when you can see on the pool in the backyard, the water line. When I woke up, this was about 6:30. I woke up and took these pictures. You could tell with the water line on the pool that it was even higher by the time that I woke up. I didn't realize the waters were there during the middle of the night, but it was even higher than what you see right there. Mm-hmm. And this is about 6:30 that morning.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Through this subdivision runs the CCC ditch, which is a major artery.
Thank you, Ms. Becknell.
That runs through almost all of my subdivisions along Highway 24. Bayou Terrebonne, and then I got the CCC, and then on the other side, I have the bayou that drains into the Bonanza pump station. So I have 2 ridges and 3 bayous. And when this event happened, it was really bad. Wallace Thibodeau, if Mr. Bush could give me any ideas. Wallace Thibodeau is located off of Bayou Blue. It's a brand-new subdivision. If you remember right, I held off on the addendum because I said there were some drainage problems, and I was assured that they were all right. The issue we have is the front drains into Bayou Blue itself, and the back is under the St. Louis Bayou.
Correct.
And it's pumped also. There are issues with the state and the culverts that are in the actual bayou in the front. My issue, and this is just from my mentality, is you're draining the front of your subdivision into the bayou. Why are the pipes located to where they can get below the water line? Because what's happening is the pipes are below the water line, so when the bayou filled up, the water started draining into the subdivision. And it went into the next system, which was in the back. I mean, the streets became a bayou. And they came out, they were very, very responsive to, when I called, and they filmed it and everything. But we've got issues. And again, brand new subdivision. And you know how I feel about brand new subdivisions. I've got people that, are receding because they've been there for 50 years and they've got problems now and I can't get any help for them. And then I've got brand new subdivisions that the developers, should have made sure that these issues were addressed. So, Mr. Bush, anything you can help me with?
Right. Bayou Blue, of course, did back up. The water did go into the subdivision, but no houses flooded.
Nope.
Okay. Remember that when an engineer is given his subdivision, he is given a tailwater to design to, and in this case, his subdivision was designed to that tailwater. It certainly was not designed to 10.5 inches of rain and backing up Bayou Blue because of the restrictions in it. The subdivision is designed properly. It does drain properly. However, we do have restrictions in Bayou Blue. We've completed the survey. We're putting the cost estimate together now for you, and at some point, I'm gonna come back to you very quickly, I hope, and you'll know how much it's gonna cost to fix the problem in Bayou Blue. Remember, the water from this subdivision has to travel a long distance to drain. Having restrictions in that bayou is not helping whatsoever. We're also going to look at putting flap gates on that particular subdivision, so if the bayou does come up again, it won't come back into the subdivision.
We had talked about those flap gates about 6 months ago, and at that time it was, oh yeah, we can do flap gates, and nothing was ever done. Now that part, you know, I told the people in the subdivision, yeah, we talked about flap gates. So I think that that is one part that our department did fail us in, because those flap gates could have been put in between now and when the, you know, we had this discussion and now, because this is what I told you was going to happen. And while I understand that street flooding is not the same as house flooding, people who purchase homes because they're escaping the water from the south, I cannot tell you the number of people who have moved from the lower part of the parish into these two subdivisions. I'm amazed every time I meet them that where they came from, and they are just so scared because all of a sudden they've got water coming up over their sidewalks, you know, and this is not supposed to happen in a new subdivision. So I believe that if we're going to tell people that the streets are going to be part of the drainage solution, then that we should be upfront with people and tell them your street is part of your drainage. Because that's what you're telling me. In Wallace Thibodeau, the streets are designed as such.
That's not what I told you.
Okay, what'd you say?
Okay.
You said we had street flooding, and that's part of the tailwater.
No, what I told you was it was designed for a certain tailwater.
Which is water in the streets?
The engineer at the time was not designing to handle 10.5 inches of water in a 3 to 4 hour storm event.
But we had this happening without 10.5 inches of water. That's why I brought it to you 6 months ago. We had it on a rain event. On Beulah, Louise, the main street coming in. The Bill Yachts live right there. They're covered. I went out there, and I took pictures then, and y'all all sat down and you said, you know, no, this is not supposed to be happening. That's when we talked about the flap gate.
Right, we talked about flap gates and also the restrictions. And we thought if we got the restrictions done, then the flap gates may not be needed, because you'll certainly drain faster without the flap gates. Now, if we know we have the restrictions, that tells us there's 1 or 3 different types of flap gates we may have to use. You have the type that can come up, you have the type that you can screw down, you got the type that open up this way depending upon the hydraulic pressure that you have to have. There's a lot of things to go, you just don't slap a gate on the end of the culvert. There's other things you have to look at.
How long before we can have a flap gate installed on those pipes that are leading into the subdivision flooding?
I would say within 30 days.
Okay, so within 30 days, I'd like to ask that this be put in our committee to come up and we have a report in 30 days on the Wallace Thibodeau and the Southern Estates, please. Thank you.
You want to put that in the form, does that need to be in the form of a motion? No? Okay. All right.
I'm good for 30 days.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Cavalier. Mr. Pizzolato?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Who is the developer and in those both subdivisions? Do you know, Mr. Bush?
For Wallace Thibodeau?
Yeah.
I know the engineer was Milford.
All right.
The contractor was Roy LaBeouf, I believe. I forget the name of the developer off the top of my head. Cairo?
Jerry.
Okay.
Jerry. And how about Southern Estates?
That I don't know. That was all
Pat,
private.
do you know?
Was it Milford? Okay.
Milford again?
I don't know who owned it, but it was Milford.
Okay. All right. Especially when you got a dip in a subdivision that somebody didn't shoot some grades, obviously. Not your fault, Mr. Bush. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pizzolato. Mr. Kevin Wazan?
Just, thank you, Mr. Chair. The pictures kind of showed an interesting tale, and this has come up during this event over and over in these subdivisions and otherwise, and I think it's germane to mention that I will say as a preface that the foundation on my home is 4 inches thick, so I fall into this category. But for hundreds of years in South Louisiana, we have built homes that sit up off the ground a couple feet. I look at my grandma's house, and it sits. In fact, we used to play under her house, which I wouldn't let my kids do that now. But we have for hundreds of years bought into this concept, and I would say that we may need to gain some of the wisdom of the past in these neighborhoods and other neighborhoods. It may be time to start thinking about either taller foundations or some way to change this. moving forward, because had every home in this neighborhood, had every home in the parish had a 2-foot thick foundation, and I'm not saying that's the answer just like that simply, but in my estimation, had every house, had the floor level been 2 feet off the ground, no one would have flooded, which means that if we had all built this 200 years ago, we wouldn't have flooded. Maybe we've gotten a little too smart for ourselves, including my own home. And please understand that I bring this up as maybe a public service announcement more than anything, but I saw a lot of my neighborhoods that looked the same as this one. It scared me, and it made me it made me question, maybe we need to start to rethink the way that we build and develop in our parish, understanding that even North Terrebonne is still pretty far south. My friends outside of the state are amazed that there is something south of New Orleans, and it's mostly us. And even the north of the parish is subject to the water levels in the Atchafalaya Basin, as we found out the hard way in this rain event. So I think it's germane to point out that we have gotten away from a certain way of building, not only the neighborhood but also the homes, that we may want to start thinking about again.
May I add something?
Yes, absolutely. Please do.
This should prove to anyone that regardless of where you live, you should have flood insurance. I'm the perfect one. I have 9-foot levees around my house. I live in a Zone X, and I have flood insurance. Because in Southeast Louisiana, you never know when there's going to be a flood.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wazir. Okay, no action necessary. Item 13, discussion and possible action with respect to the importance of the CCC ditch to the overall drainage system in the parish. Ms. Cavalier?
I'd like to postpone this to Wednesday night. When I originally had you called in, I wanted this one on Wednesday night, and I've told the constituents who live and were affected by it, and they're planning on, being here on Wednesday. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Ms. Williams?
I support holding it over to Wednesday also, but at the same token, I went out to Hedgeford. I was discussing with Ms. Cavalier, because we share a lot of this, and Mr. Abair. And Hedgeford is blocked with so many trees till the whole back part of that subdivision was flooded. So I need to know, Mr. Bush, they were told that we can't touch that property until FEMA comes in. And I need to know what's going on in the back part of Hedgeford and why we are so many months later from Gustav and Ike, and there's still like 8 feet trees that are in it, blocking that little canal in the back of the Hedgeford subdivision. And if you don't have that answer tonight, I understand, but I would like it for Wednesday.
I can answer that tonight.
Okay.
Because it's been very frustrating for myself and the parish president. We were initially told that NRCS had to inspect everything first. And if we tried to touch anything without their approval, then we would not be reimbursed or compensated for the work we did. So we went through the NRCS process. And that took to us painfully long. We were also told by FEMA that we couldn't do anything unless we had an NRCS letter that stated they would not fund to do that work. So we were caught between the rock and a hard place here. Mm-hmm. So we did go, if we had anything that we thought was an emergency situation, we did authorize to have that picked up. And there were several buildings, sheds and things that we went and picked up out of certain canals and bayous. As far as this section, NRCS did approve the funding for it. Y'all, in a recent resolution, approved it. We just got the official written approval from NRCS. The RFQs went out today. The engineers or monitoring services who are going to bid on it have 2 weeks to submit their proposal. At that point, we put specs together in accordance with the NRCS documentation as required, and then we go out for bid for a contractor.
So this should be cleaned up before the start of this upcoming hurricane season.
We are making every attempt to have it done by that time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Kevin Wazan?
This is probably a really dumb question, but RFQ means request for quote?
Request for quotes.
Okay, thank you.
Right, when you do a federal, anything with federal funds requires an RFQ or an RFP, request for proposal. In this case, we're asking for qualifications for firms that have either done this in the past or done something similar to it. And then we have a selection committee that selects what we feel is the best firm to accomplish the work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wazan. Okay, no action necessary. Item 14, consider the introduction of an ordinance to establish a no parking zone on both sides of Bristol Boulevard and calling for a public hearing on said matter on April 22nd, 2009 at 6:30 PM. This item to be pulled. Consider add-on to introduce an ordinance to create a no parking zone on a portion of Alma Street. Mr. Abear?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had originally asked for Alma Streets, and evidently there was some confusion, and Bristol Boulevard was added into it. Bristol Boulevard intersects with Alma Street, and the no parking zone should be along Alma Street because the people coming out cannot see the traffic, and they want to have some no parking zone. So I'd like to make a motion that we add on tonight to save time for this particular ordinance, if possible.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Public comments, first call public. Second call public. Third and final call public.
Motion to close.
Motion to close, Mr. Abear, second by Ms. Williams. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion
Okay.
carries.
Motion that we adopt the new ordinance for Alma Street. on both
Motion to
sides.
adopt, Mr. Abear. Second, Ms. Williams. All right. Mr. Wazan, Kevin Wazan?
My light's on. I'm happy with the motion. I just wanted to clarify. I kind of been very public about my opposition to add-ons, and I'm in favor of this because if it stops one wreck, it's not worth holding it up 2 weeks to. I mean, in this case, you have a hazard where if somebody parks there legally next week and they don't, I don't want a wreck on my conscience. It's that this is not something that costs money, not something that requires a contract, and if it's for public safety and I don't want to wait a day, and so I can support this. It's a little bit moot now, but I can definitely support this given those criteria. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Cavalier?
Is there still a public hearing? Sure. We're introducing this ordinance and then we will adopt it next. That's why I can support it, because the public will still have the opportunity. That add-ons I don't like because the public doesn't have a chance to come in. But with the public hearing, I can support this wholly. Thank you.
All right, public hearing will be April 22nd, 2009 at 6:30. Okay, Mr. Abear?
Yeah, just one note to answer your question. The reason why I'm pushing for it, it's a brick wall along Alma Street, so they can't see it all until they get past the brick wall, and if there's cars parked there, it blocks the vision. So that's why I'm pushing it. It's a bad situation. Thank you.
Okay, we have
That's
a
it.
motion and a second on the Okay, we have a motion and a second on the adoption. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 15, discussion and possible action on the status of Bylacarp Drainage Phase C project. Ms. Williams?
Mr. Bush, and it says Phase C, but I'm actually concerned with both Phase C and D. D especially, it helps my district and Mr. Tillman's district, but my district took a even harder hit in the inner city this past rainstorm event. So I've been looking at this and talking with Mr. Tillman and the parish president earlier, and this goes back way before this administration to 2004, and I want to know how far we've come, where we're going, and what are we doing in the near future on this project.
Okay, I'll start, and then if you have any further questions, I have Mr. Bro from Gulf South available. You're right, a study was started in 2004, and that study made several recommendations. And since 2004, the parish has taken those recommendations and divided it into several phases. The first phase, or one that was done, was the M&L pump station. And they had improvements to that, which added 33% more pumping capacity at approximate cost of $1.5 million. Another recommendation was the design of a new Bayreuth pump station and the drain lines, of course, that would feed that pump station. We had major problems in trying to locate the pump station where it was, and we started looking at Magnolia Street adjacent to the Intracoastal Canal. We're presently negotiating right-of-way acquisition for property owners in order to rearrange some drainage trunk lines in order to get to this location for the pump station. The approximate budget for this new pump station and the drain trunk lines is $5 million. In addition, we've had recently constructed a steel sheet pile wall along Little Bayou Black, adjacent to the Barataria pump station, and we've also done some drain line improvements next to Morrison Home Center, which I discussed earlier, where we found those pipes that had rusted away. The approximate budget to complete this work is $714,000. I think the biggest improvement that we're looking forward to is a new pump station that would be on Magnolia Street. With the new drainage trunk lines we'll be bringing into it, we'll actually have 2 pump stations. We'll have hopefully enough conveyance system to get water quickly to the pump stations.
What happens when those when litter blocks the gates at those pump stations?
Depending upon the type of litter, it can cause the pumps to lose their efficiency, and in some cases it can starve the pumps. If it's small plastic bottles, styrofoam cups, things like that, they pass right through the pumps.
I went to the Bayroy pump station, and it was literally pressed against the little fence. And I mean, Coke bottles, there's a big log in the middle of it. And I was wondering, what can we do, or what have we done to start doing something to clear some of that? Because both of those pumps were on, but that area flooded. That area flooded from the church on up Margaret Street, Lafayette Street, every street in between. And I know that it's because it's the Bayroy pump station and the M&L and Barataria. And now you're saying that if we get another one in the between of them on Magnolia Street, that it would prevent some of this flooding. But my question is, we need to clean some of the drainage that's already over there, because I walked from the Deweyville area back to the Dumas Auditorium area, and there was trash. I mean, all the way there in the different drains. Some of them were covered with, I mean, people had taken grass, I guess, and just piled it up, put it on top of the drain, or grass had overgrown, or they had logs in some areas of covering this thing. So I would like to see when we go out and clear these drainage, if it's on these properties that, I mean, that's parish right away, and they have these businesses that's doing this and that's clogging this stuff, that we find some of these businesses, because that's ridiculous that they don't live in these areas. I mean, I had one area that cuts right in the middle of our districts on Clay Street, and there were big logs that just, first of all, they rolled from the company, and then they covered each one of the little drainage ditches all the way to the back part of the subdivision, and they still have logs in some of these people's yards, and that's neither here nor there. But the problem is a lot of litter is in these stations, and we need to do something, because we could put another pump station all we want, but if we don't clean up the mess that's already there, it's gonna flood again. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I was out at 2:30 that morning. I had never saw that much water back there. I grew up on the side of this Bayroy pump station, right on the side of it. And I never saw that much water in the Deweyville area. So, I mean, I'm pleased to hear what you're saying that we're going to do. And I talked to another engineer, and that was a suggestion also. And whatever monies we need to do, and Mr. President was just telling me that we're going to probably use some of the AAR money to do this. I would love to see this being pushed big time, because this was done in 2004, and it was recommended that 3 48-inch pumps and 1 30-inch pump be put at the Bayroy pump station, and here we are 5 years later with 2 pumps and a lot of water. And that's my stand, and I know this was before your time, but if you're telling me we're going to try to get a new pump station, I fully support that and would love to see how we can, as a parish council, help this, because although it affected my district, it affected downtown Homer. It affected near the police station. It was weird that I was standing in there getting a phone call from somebody who needed to be picked up by a deuce and a half right outside of the door of the police station.
I think to answer one of your questions, I can go out there with a great awl and start pulling those bottles and cans and things out of that sump in front of that pump station. And as soon as I start doing that, more of it's coming right down the culverts. I think the best thing to recommend to you and to the rest of the council is to look at the signs on the front here that says "Don't litter." And I think education of our children, and the children going back and telling their parents, And the children, when they're in the car with their parents and they see their dad or mom throw that Coke bottle out the window, Daddy, you shouldn't do that, okay? Home is not the clean city anymore because you just did that. And I really honestly believe that's where we have to start. I think we have to get away from what's called a Mardi Gras mentality of throwing stuff. Everybody throws stuff. Well, they throw it into the ditches, they throw it on top of the culverts. We got to start with education because my people can't clean those things as fast as that trash is coming down. I'll be honest with you. We can't. We try, but it's coming so fast. And I think you all see it. I think Mr. Voisin talked about it at the council meeting we had. His district had problems with industrial type waste that clogged up catch basins. It's a problem all over the parish. I don't care what district you're from. Trash is a problem. And when it rains, and when it rains like this, it becomes a big problem for all of us.
But are you gonna go to this Bayroy pump station and start the cleaning?
We already started.
You have?
Yes.
Well, I appreciate that and I thank you, but I still say that these businesses that are clogging some of this stuff up also and covering these drainage catch basins, they need to be fined also.
I don't have the authority in Public Works.
I'm just publicly saying that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Tillman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And certainly we realize that Bayroy, the Bayroy pump station area have always been a challenge for us. One of the things that I looked at when we had the hydrological study done for the Bayou LeCompte watershed. Now we know that that area, we have some very small jars under there. We realize that. Now, my question is that as we begin to upgrade the pumps at Bayroy, in which we've done, we've done. I think it was a few years ago we put a new pump there. I'm trying to figure out whether or not those additional pumps that we put there, whether it would be able to deal with the capacity that's going through. You have those very, very small pipes. I think was donated to us by one of those oil field companies, Shell, Texaco. Is there any way we can maybe perhaps begin to look at maybe perhaps removing some of those pipes? I know it's costs a lot of money, but you can have as large a pump as you want, but you got to have some of the water come through, large enough for the water to come through. So we realize all of the growth that we've had in that area over the years. The other question is that have we done anything to maybe perhaps put our little cam down in there to check to see if we have any of those arteries that are plugged up in that Bayou LeCompte watershed area? Have we done anything like that lately?
We just had that whole area cleaned by a contractor. The whole city of Houma, Saturday and Sunday.
I'm not talking about that. I mean, I know we have the guys that's been out with the pumps and cleaning out, and they've done a lot of good. How do we get have we gotten pictures from the guys? And if we have, I would like to see the pictures of the Bayou LeCompte watershed. I would like to see those pictures.
Pictures from the culvert cleaner?
Yes.
Yes, we have pictures of that.
Now, I would like to see those pictures, and along with that, I would like for our guys to take our cam and put it down in there and let that thing run in there and take some pictures to see if we have any type of blockages there. Now, we can have the guys to go in and clean it out, but if you got a blockage down there on those pipes that have caved in, once he clean it, the stuff just gonna get back in there again.
If there's a blockage, he won't be able to successfully clean it.
Why not?
Because his pressure hose won't go through the blockage. And that's how, then he has to report that to Public Works. So when they were cleaning, they would have found any blockages. And they were required to report that.
Okay, well, I would like to see those pictures. I really would.
There's several hundred of them, Mr. Tillman.
Well, just for the Bayou LeCompte watershed area, I don't need all the pictures, but we need to see something
all the
there.
pictures are several thousand.
In the Bayou LeCompte watershed?
No, for the parish.
I don't need the whole parish. I need the pictures relevant to the Bayou LeCompte watershed. Those are the pictures that I would like to see.
Okay.
Okay. The other thing is that when we look at the Bayou LeCompte watershed in the area of Acock Street, and I got a phone call from the individuals over at the St. Lucie Church. Now, I know we had a significant amount of water in a relatively short period of time, which my understanding is 10 inches or better. Now, one of the things that we had discussed a while back, I think it was Mr. LaPera was here at the time, and we discussed maybe diverting some of that water toward 311 in what the bayou is off of 311, right by the Civic Center.
Bill Bayou.
Bill Bayou Black. That some way we can perhaps divert some of the water that way in terms of maybe having some jars to go toward that way to give some type of relief to help the Beroy Pump Station along the way. That was something we discussed. I don't know if we ever really did anything in terms of moving forward on it, but I think that would be something we should put on the table and look seriously in terms of diverting some of that water that way. I don't think that we'll ever truly remove the pipes, the smaller pipes that we have, but I think until we do something, that's going to be a major challenge. Now, the other thing I want to say, and this is for parish-wide thinking. I've been a strong advocate in terms of lateral ditches, the importance of ditches, the importance of wetland and swampland. You know, I mean, I listen to every council person here talk about the challenges that we have as it relates to the water. My district is no exception. But people, I'm telling you, if we don't do something in terms of development, in terms of covering our ground with all this concrete we got, people, we're going to be just sitting here spinning our wheels, and we creating a mound of the problems that we have. I look at the various new developments that we have. Some of these developments that I look at, especially in the area of 311, I mean, as a little boy, I played out there in the swampland. I played out there in them. And I'm telling you, it's going to be a constant challenge for us because I'm a true believer that as swampland it was, eventually swampland it returned. I'm a true believer in that because I believe that swampland is just your world. It's just the sponge of the earth. It just absorbs water like no other piece of land. So we're going to have to start thinking about preserving some of these swamplands, you know. And if we don't do that, we're going to have to create more ditches, more laterals. We're going to have to create more dips in this earth, whether it's artificial ponds, for example. I remember when we was dealing with the Walmart situation, and people was all over me, coming left, right, in between, under the rug, everywhere. Don't put that large pond out there because we're going to all flood. And I got to tell you today, we was talking about a dry pond, and some of the folks said it'll never be a dry pond, but when you pass out there, it's a dry pond. But what was beautiful about it was that I took a run over to the area of Swan, and when I looked at that, there wasn't a significant amount of water there. But I looked at that pond, and I looked at how that water was held up in that pond until the water in Bayou Chauvin began to recede, giving Woodlawn Ranch Pump Station a chance to catch up, and that water went on out of that pond, and it became dry again. People, we need some reservoir space. We need some reservoir space. And I said this to you before, I'm going to tell it to you again. I don't know what you believe in, but I know one thing. It got to be a force greater than you and I to deal with what we're dealing with. We need to get some more reservoir space, and we need to do it soon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Tillman. Mr. Kevin Wazan?
Just, thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I don't need to reiterate the litter is the flood. This is a parish where driving through water in a neighborhood too fast could get you shot. I mean, it is, and I've seen that can get you shot, and yet dropping the trash that clogged the culvert that created the street is wholly tolerated. And I would like to say to the public and to anyone who can hear my voice, the guy driving down the street too fast in the water on the road, there wouldn't be water to ride through sometimes if it wasn't for the trash in the culvert. I will never forget the sound. We couldn't figure out why Venture was flooding the way that it was. Now, it should have flooded a little bit, but not the way that it was. And me and a water patrol officer went over to the culvert, and I said, boy, is that stuck? We pulled on this huge piece of insulation, and when it dislodged, I heard, and whoosh, there goes water. And I'll tell you that for the rest of my life, I'll remember that sound because the litter just about flooded those businesses. I don't need to talk about that anymore, but I'd like to know in the Bayou La Carpe drainage, where does the water go we talk a lot about in the parish about pumps, and I'm going to try to take us to the next step. Where is it pumped to? You know, in Finding Nemo, all water goes to the ocean, right? Where does the water pump to from there? And I think if we start to think about this a little more, you don't need to get us all the way to the ocean, but we gotta kind of think about this because we pump onto one another sometimes, and I'm a little nervous about adding Little Bayou Black. There was nothing to add during the event, and so I get nervous. But where does the water pump to?
In this case, the intracoastal.
Okay, straight into the intracoastal. Okay, that's important because just about everybody's water goes to the intracoastal, and when your water in the intracoastal is high, and when the Atchafalaya Basin is high, the water goes right back past town, infiltrates, and comes right back around. It's a giant circle, so it's a little harder to trace with your finger than most of the times when we pump water in a 2-block circle. But understand that scenario is the same for just about all of us. Even our gravity drain goes to the intracoastal, and so as we pump to the intracoastal, and people wonder, well, you know, as we get more and more pumps to the intracoastal, I believe we're becoming a big enough community that we have to start looking at the limits of the intracoastal and how much can it accept and how much can it take. You know, we're not a small 10,000 person. The water doesn't just disappear on the other end of the pump is all the point I'm trying to make. I appreciate you guys letting me make that point. I think it's super important because we tend to want, okay, pumped out, gone. Not really gone. It's still out there somewhere, and sometimes it can come back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wazir. Ms. Williams?
Very quickly, Mr. Tillman brought up something about letting that water go into Little Bayou Black. Can you give us more information on that in about 30 days?
I think so.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. And just a comment through the chair, my little girl and I were riding through Mr. Abear's district this weekend, and also in my district, I noticed people out cutting their grass, and we got all our culverts cleaned, spent millions of dollars, and they throwing their grass into the street. I mean, common sense is going to tell you the first rain or hard wind, that grass is going back into these catch basins, and we're back to square one. Just public information. If you do have to throw the grass in the street for whatever reason, sweep it and pick it up. That's it. No action needed. Item 16, ratifying the parish president's appointment of T. Baker Smith Incorporated to provide engineering work for the major turn lane project funded through the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009.
So moved.
Motion to add on
So moved.
by Mr. Pizzolotta, second by Mr. Wazir. Mr. Kevin Wazir?
Is there, I'm trying to understand the dire necessity of this being added right now as opposed to, yeah, sure, I mean.
Mr. Claude?
Right. There have been a lot of confusion as to what exactly we needed to spend our $5.76 million that we have. We've divided into concrete repairs, asphalt overlays, and major turn lanes. We've submitted a number of major turn lanes, and we were under the impression there was a different timeline for the submission of plans. They've now indicated that those plans have to be submitted to DOTD in June, and consequently, we need to get this as expedited as possible. We learned that on Thursday afternoon at the meeting, at the MPO meeting, and at that point in time, by the time we got back, this committee had already been closed, and quite honestly, we needed to put it as an add-on. I'm sorry for that, but there's a lot of money at stake for all these turn lanes, that some of which will be done in most people's districts. And we don't want to do this on a regular basis, and we're very attuned to the fact that no one wants to add add-ons, but we feel that given the fact we have now gotten a commitment from T. Baker Smith that they will make the deadline, which is very important to us, and we needed that commitment before we could recommend them, because if they weren't going to do it on time, we were going to get someone else to do it, I'll be honest.
Is there a cost associated with this?
There certainly is.
Do we know what it is?
It's,
I
right
haven't
now,
seen it.
generally, there are a percentage of the contracts that are to be let. Right now, I think it's, and Mr. Bush could probably tell you a little more as to the approximate cost. The
Their fee will be between 7 and 10% of the total contract cost. The total contract cost will be determined, of course, after you take the bids and so forth.
Thank you.
Does that help you? Or?
No, it does. I'm caught between.
Well, to give you an example, the
It's-
asphalt and the concrete work is being done with in-house engineers. It's not going to an outside firm. So you have no cost there except the employee cost. There is no way that the in-house people could handle this volume of work. When we found out that we had to have plans, 95% plans to DOTD by June, originally that date didn't exist. Originally, they weren't going to review the plans. And then when DOTD said they had to review the plans, the October date suddenly had to jump to June. So DOTD now wants 4 or 5 months of our time in order to review the plans. Now, are they doing that because they don't want us to make the date? I'm just guessing, I'm not accusing anybody. But I need help if you want to get this done on time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wazan. Mr. Pizzolatto?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Please vote for this. This is money that we'll lose if we don't vote for it. Please vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pizzolatto. Ms. Cavalier?
Bush, tonight is a make or break. If we don't approve this tonight, we won't make the deadline.
I can't say it's a make or break. I'm just saying you're taking time away from the engineer that he's going to be working on turn lanes.
Because he's got until June.
16 June is the date we have to turn in 95% plans to DOTD. And that was determined, I think, Thursday at the MPO meeting, of which many of you attended.
June date was determined.
Well, that was the timeline given to us at that time. Now, before that, I was told 120 days. Now, DOTD took up part of that 120 days.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cavalier. Mr. Clayton Wazan?
Yes, these dates were found out last Thursday, the MPO committee. 4 council members actually sit on that committee, myself, Ms. Williams, Mr. Tillman, and Mr. Pizzolatto. And it was harsh for us to hear it that quickly. Our next meeting is actually set for May 14th, but there's the possibility, should the council endorse this and Mr. Bush can get this thing moving quick enough, that we may actually have to call another meeting at the end of April to be able to present the plan to them to get it done. And I'm not going to say that somebody set a schedule for us that's going to be impossible to meet, but one thing is for sure, I would certainly appreciate this council helping us to maybe meet that commitment and in a timely fashion. It's detrimental that these turn lanes, and the money is there, and it's one of those things where you either use it or lose it. And as the president said, we were all a bit taken aback when we found out that the timeline had been actually moved up, or not moved up, but DOTD actually used probably more time maybe than they should have, and it put us in a little bit of a bond. And it's unfortunate, but that's where we're at right now. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd certainly appreciate your support.
Any other comments?
Mr. Tillman, sir.
Mr. Tillman?
Thank you. Thank you.
Come on. There you go, Alvin, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just like to echo what was already said. You know, at the MPO meeting, I know I was, as well as the members here, was caught aback in terms of the timeline that we had. And certainly my concern was that we can't afford to lose any dollar opportunity that's out there that we can get. And I think if we don't do something tonight, there's that possibility. So let's just make sure we move forward. And with the 4 council members, along with the parish president and administration that was there, they certainly can all concur that the desperate need that we have in terms of time, moving forward on the time that we thought we had versus the time that we have. So I'm certainly asking that you guys support this.
Mr. Kevin, your second time.
I am caught between a rock and a hard place on this, and I feel a little bit like Adam whenever his better half offered the apple. I can tell you that our founding father said there's 2 things that the American people should never see, which is the making of sausage and the making of laws. And I think that in this case, that my personal opinions have to sit on the side for the benefit of Terrebonne. I just don't see how this could possibly be bad. Although I will say, I have reservations, and I will lay the gauntlet at the feet of the administration to make this vote worth it. I mean, please, I am very publicly and openly swallowing a promise that I made to my constituents, because I think to keep it would hurt them more than it would help them at this point. It will pain me, but I will support this. Thank you.
Ms. Williams?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just again to echo the sentiment of the rest of us that have sat at this meeting. We were not the only parish that was put in this predicament. Terrebonne, Lafourche, Assumption, all of us put up projects and actually thought we had enough time to go back and correct and come back. But we're not dealing with local government here. We're dealing with state and federal government. And I think the last time that when we came back from Washington, D.C., and we all talked about the monies that was available, it was kind of a consensus that we were not going to let any dollars go. So I think if we have the opportunity to go ahead and push forward for these turn lanes, that's something that we've all wanted in some of our districts, and we have the information to back up where they're going to go. This is something that we need to support, and we need to push it through to get everything done, and to have Al and Bush and Greg to have enough time if there are changes or anything that these people are going to require, so that we won't have to come back and do another add-on later. So I would just ask that my fellow colleagues that were not there would trust the four and the administration that were there that this is a matter of urgency. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Claudet?
Right, I just want to reconfirm, the meeting was Thursday, we got back Thursday evening. We could not appoint an engineer, in my opinion, until we got confirmation from them in writing that they will make this date. The committee meetings closed basically Thursday, they're closed by that time, and then Friday morning, we had not received the confirmation that they could do it in order to even get it on the council agenda. We need to get this project. It is very important. Otherwise, we're going to be losing dollars in turn lanes for the residents of Terrebonne. That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Claudet. Mr. Clayton Wazan?
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, just to point out for anyone in the public who may not be aware, the MPO committee actually consists of Terrebonne Parish, Lafourche Parish, the city of Thibodaux, the parish, the metropolitan area of the parish of Assumption, and also the city of Lockport. And that is what's compiled of that. 4 members of that committee sit from Terrebonne Parish, and approximately 60% of the funding that the MPO committee is able to acquire comes to Terrebonne Parish because of the size of our city. And it's just point of information for the public and anyone on the dais who maybe wasn't aware of that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Wazan. Mr. Hebert?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, we have 4 council people on this committee, and I mean, as much as I don't like the add-ons, I had one tonight, and this is something very special. It's something that is supported by my fellow councilmen on that committee, and I can support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hebert. All right, and through the chair again, I appreciate my colleagues having an open mind on these add-ons and taking them into consideration. I mean, sometimes it's a necessary evil that we have to do it, and I appreciate everyone's help on this deal. Okay, so we have a motion to add on. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. First call, public. Second call, public. Third and final call, public. Motion to close, Mr. Wazan, second by Ms. Williams and Mr. Kevin Wazan. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adopt, Mr. Clayton Wazan, second by Ms. Williams. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn, Mr. Hebert. Second, Mr. Kevin Wazan. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll recess for 5 minutes. What we got next? Community development.
Well, let's say I want to send something to Michelle. Okay, here's. So, what you do is you turn it sideways, okay? And if you want to hit reply, and up comes your keyboard. And it's not easy. You do it with your thumbs, and you have to get used to it, though. You know, but you have to go back. Now, the guy told me that. Driving me crazy, but I need to go back and talk to him to see how you do certain things.
That is so neat. Have your kids in there already?
Let's
Ooh,
see.
look at the tiger.
Yeah, it's my let's see. It here's pretty good. Yeah. Ooh.
Question for you. The lady called me back on that.
Football league trials. He was. Yeah.
And then you have a big event where
It's good seeing you again.
Looked like you had an easy one so far tonight, huh?
So far.
Notice to the public, if you wish to address the committee, please fill out public wishing to address committee form located on either side of the counter. Give it to the chairperson or the council clerk prior to the meeting. We also ask that individuals addressing the council should be respectful of others in their choice of words. We also ask that all cell phone, pages, electronic devices used for communication should be silent for the duration of this meeting. Meeting will start in 1 minute.
I know I didn't. I can't lie. I was looking for the phone number.
Rock and roll. Council member, take your places, please. We now call meeting to order. We have invocation by Councilperson Terry Cavalier. We have pledge of allegiance by Councilperson Billy Abel. Will everyone stand, please?
Able to come here tonight and make these decisions that affect and concern so many of our residents. We pray, dear Lord, right now for the people who were affected by our recent rain. Give them strength. And dear Lord, take their anger and just heal them, because I understand that frustration, and help us to be patient when we have to experience it from them. Dear Lord, we pray for the people that serve our country. We pray for those families that are affected by their service. And dear Lord, we pray for all who have suffered loss in the last week. And we pray that you will send your healing spirit to them. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
United States of America, and to the republic.
Thank you, Ms. Cavalier. Thank you, Mr. Hebert. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Cavalier. Mr. Sehan. Mr. Hebert. Mr. Lambert. Mr. Pizzolata. Mr. Tillman.
Here.
Mr. Wazan. Mr. Kevin. Ms. Williams. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Item 1, resolution authorizing the parish president to execute a cooperative endeavor agreement between the Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government and the Economic Development Authority, providing for the administration of badge reentry distribution. I have one speaker card on this matter. Okay, we have Roger Burgess, Bourgeois, 2916 Carroll Street. What was that? I can't read. What is it? Creole Drive in Houma, Louisiana, 70363. The person present, you have 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Just want to say amen to Mr. Bush for his assessment of
Give me
the
your name
litter
and address
situation.
for the record, please. Name and address for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry, 29, Roger Bourgeois, 2916 Creole Drive, Houma, Louisiana, 70364. Concerning the resolution, last year I had a pass or a badge from the sheriff's office. I thought it worked quite well. I'm not sure why we're doing things differently this year. I first became aware of this new proposal through the Courier and attending the SCIA meeting. I'm concerned, and I would ask that all of you who serve on the council and serve on this committee take time to read the liability release form that is on the backside of the Terrebonne Economic Development Reentry application. Front side seems fairly harmless, except there's some information about proof of bond, and I've yet to find out what that is all about. On the rear side, there's two very, very broad liability release forms that the person that has to sign, apparently, to re-enter the parish. My concern is the definition of the emergency situation or the storm event. I could foresee in a court of law where if there was a named storm in the Gulf of Mexico and I get run over by a Homo police car rushing to one of these situations that they seem to rush to on a regular basis, first thing that would happen is somebody would pull this form and say, well, wait a while, we have a named hurricane, Mr. Bourgeois. You signed this anti-indemnity, hold harmless agreement, and as such, you just out of luck. I mean, this thing is so broad, it includes any volunteers that could run me over as well. First off, I guess to really look at the situation, I guess I understand the intent, and maybe this is something that the state has done, but it kind of behooves me a little bit to question, as a taxpaying resident, taxpaying corporate owner in the parish of Terrebonne, why do I need to indemnify the parish to return to it? Not only the parish, everybody and his brother and brother-in-laws and cousins and volunteers and everybody else. If that be the case, then maybe I should have to indemnify the parish to live here. Because, you know, we very subject to flooding and hurricanes. I wouldn't mind signing this thing if it had definitions that said what was the storm event, what was the emergency period. I mean, is it when you declare a state of emergency and you evacuate the parish until you return? I think it's, you know, very broadly worded. Understand there's some 1,200 people that have already applied for these permits, and to be quite frank, I was a little bit dismayed that we're looking at approving a resolution tonight, and Tita's got all these forms made, and I was told at the SCI meeting that I could go to the Tita website and get more information on this. We went to the website, I couldn't get any information on it. I've called for an appointment, I've had 2 calls. I'm trying to get an appointment to do it. But overall, in closing, I just have some concerns that a citizen wishing to return to do business and keep his business running so he can pay taxes, pay his occupational license, and all of the other things, plus provide support to the hospitals and hospitals, offshore pipeline companies, and all of the critical companies that he provides fire protection service for, would have to sign this. And if I know damn well if I brought it to my attorney, he would tell me not to sign it. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies.
Okay, just before we leave, Mr. Bourgeois, I just want you to remember that I think I've discussed beavers and dams in the meeting before. We ask that you please keep those type words to yourself. We do have young folks out there in the audience that are watching. I certainly understand that we have frustration from time to time, but we ask that you do not use those type words. And I think I made that clear when I read out the notice to the public. And if I did not, I'm just going to read it just one more time. It said, individuals addressing the council should be respectful of others in their choice of words and actions. So we appreciate it if you certainly pay courage to that.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to apologize for using that word. I didn't mean it in reference to anybody here. It was just maybe frustration with too much government, something that I noticed in all of your conversations tonight. You're frustrated with state government, federal government, and all of these other things. And I guess I, as a businessman who is trying to make a decent living the right way, just gets frustrated with all of the bureaucracy that we all have to contend with.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I understand your frustration. That's why I gave you another few seconds. Mr. Pizzolata?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for the gentleman's concern, I can see the reasons for this. If someone comes into the parish during any state of emergency, and I'll use an example, the recent flood we had, and they drive through water and a culvert has been washed out and that road is no longer safe to travel on, but it's 6 foot deep, and that car plunges into that ditch and we lose some people in that automobile, this parish can't be responsible because you have said to yourself, I'm going in during a state of emergency, and we allow you to come in because you have that TITA pass. That's just one example. There are many other examples that could happen. You could come in during the state of emergency where there would be explosions devices set. not intentionally, but you never know when the gas line is going to explode in one part of the parish, and a state of emergency is called, and we've evacuated the parish, and 2 days later, you got to come back in. You come in with your pass, and then another explosion goes off in another area of the parish. So the parish can't be responsible for your actions wanting to get back in to service your company or do what you have to do when we're in a state of emergency. When we're not in a state of emergency, you well know that you can do what you have to do, or anybody can do what they have to do to claim to be reimbursed for something that the parish causes. But during a state of emergency, that's exactly what it is, and we have to protect this parish because this parish is just not one businessman. It represents 110,000 people plus, and we have to protect those people, and I think that's the reason why this is done, and I'm going to support it. Thank you.
Ms. Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Ferdinand?
Mr. Ferdinand?
If I could, through the chair, could Mr. Ferdinand just explain exactly what's going on? I think Mr. Pizzolatto touched on it, but I would like to hear a better explanation from Mr. Ferdinand.
Mike Ferdinand, CEO of Terrebonne Economic Development Authority. Yes, ma'am, Mr. Pizzolatto pretty much summarized the intent of the indemnification in the TITA agreement. The purpose of this program, TITA was asked to assist in putting together a program to help businesses return. During the last storm events of Gustav and Ike, the passes that were issued were not sufficient during the last storm event to really address all the critical businesses that are necessary to restart Terrebonne Parish's economy. These critical businesses include those who are contractors to the parish, those who are critical oil field service, those who are the basic services such as fuel, food, and medications. It is critical that these businesses have the opportunity to become functional before the return of the population.
And you guys have gone over this with your attorneys and everything?
Yes, we have, and parish council as well.
Thank you, Mr. Ferdinand. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted some clarification so that Mr. Bourgeois could understand.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Ferdinand. Ms. Cavalier?
Yes, could I ask Mr. Bourgeois if he'd come back and,
Mr. Bourgeois, under Ms. Cavalier's light.
Thank you. Mr. Bourgeois, you stated that you had something from the sheriff that allowed you to come back in. You were talking about re-entry?
This was the last hurricane season.
Okay, the last hurricane season.
Correct.
How did you obtain that?
You paid a fee and got the badge.
You were registered before?
You were registered with the sheriff's office, but didn't have to sign any agreement.
Okay. There were many people who didn't know that was available to them, business owners. And I think it's because you didn't have a problem that you're probably not aware of the problem that a lot of other people had. I had some constituents in my district who owned businesses on the east side, and they were not allowed back into the parish, even though they showed ownership of the property. And they had those roll-down doors. I mean, this was described to me. And they had hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment that they couldn't get to their business to, secure. And I think that this has come out of that because we had so many business owners that were very angry because they weren't considered what we call Tier 1. Because for me to get back in the parish, I had to have an ID that said Tier 1. I was never offered anything by the sheriff's office either. So I think there was a select few people who knew about this program through the sheriff's office. And I think that out of that need, this has arose. But I know that it's very important that we only have a certain amount of people allowed back in and that those people be crucial. And I would certainly agree that, you as a business owner and the type of business you have, that you are very important and you should be allowed back in. But I think that the problem is there were some people who were excluded because either they didn't pay that fee or they weren't invited to pay that fee.
Can I say a couple words? First, I wasn't in a select group. I actually read about it in the Courier and went to the sheriff's office. It was in the public domain, I think, for anybody that wanted to go to it. And for Mr. Pizzolatto, can I address Mr. Pizzolatto under your light?
No, sir. He'll
Okay.
have to give you his.
Okay, I just wanted to just make one statement on that. But no, I'm aware why this is being put into place. My only objection, and I don't have a problem signing the liability release, I just think it's too broad in what it doesn't define. And that's my only problem with it.
Okay.
I mean, certainly it's written in the best interest of the parish, certainly. And like the young lady told me at SCIA, well, an attorney wrote it. And I said, I appreciate that. That's why I'm concerned. So that's my only concern, is that I just think from a business person, 90% of the population is going to sign this and not even read it. I happen to be one of those that read everything I sign, and that's why I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cavalier?
That's it.
Thank you very much. Ms. Williams?
Yeah, just a point of clarification. The card that he's speaking of, I don't think it just went to business owners. They advertised if you lived on the eastern part of the parish and the lower ends of the parish to come into the sheriff's office to get this card, and it ran starting like last January, but people didn't really get that rush until Gustav was sitting in the golf and people were telling them that they had to go and get one, because I know my family that lives in Lower Dularge did go out and get the card, and it's not really a re-entry badge. It's just something to prove that you do live in that particular area or neighborhood so that you can get back to your homes. So, but this program will be totally different as it pertains to the businesses and the necessities of those coming back into the parish on a certain tier program. I just wanted to clear that up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. K. Wazan?
And not to belabor the point, but I think in this case, we're making the right decision. I think you have to, when you want to come in and it's not safe, I mean, we're not talking about a normal day that it's just, let me get back to my house because it rained outside. You're talking about a state of emergency, and you're going to have to make broad concessions because you're asking to come in a time of broad exceptions. I mean, nothing is normal. I don't know how many times I almost hit power lines that I never even saw. Even in this rain event, there were power lines that went down that me and a fully functional, very good sheriff's deputy almost hit in full daylight. It's right out of sight. I think in this case, nobody is being forced to ask for the exception to come back in. And I think that if we're going to ask for an exception, I appreciate the bureaucracy statements. I don't like the bureaucracy either, but I think we're attempting to respond to the public demanding we have a more organized, better way to get back into the parish. And in this case, where we're asking for an exception, we're saying, I'm more important than most people, and therefore I need to get back in earlier, and for legitimate reasons, because for legitimate reasons, your business or whatever it is that allows you to get this make you a little bit more important to this place getting back on its feet than most people. And I think if we're going to say that about ourselves, we've got to be able to accept some broad responsibility, because we can't, as a body or as any kind of government entity, we can't predict what can happen. And I think that kind of comes with the territory. I wish we could define it too, but if we could define it, then we'd know what all of the emergencies that we were going to face were, and we wouldn't need it in the first place. We could just prepare. So I think where we ask for exceptions, we have to look for exceptional treatment.
That's it?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wazan. Mr. K. Wazan. Mr. Claude?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've known Mr. Bourgeois for quite some time. I know he's really involved with maybe the encroachment of government into the lives of businesses, and I don't blame him in the least, because that's the way I've always felt. I just want to remember, I guess my side is where I represent, and I think for the parish's standpoint, when we know the unsafe conditions and everything else, from a parish's standpoint, that's what we need to do, and I know you understand that. In case people don't realize, Mr. Bourgeois is the one with his bourgeois hot sauce. He has been a real supporter of the Folklife Museum, and most of those duck decoys in there are his, and he's been a supporter of ours for many, many years. We thank you for support. What we're approving tonight is not that agreement. That's already come before the council at a prior time. What we're agreeing is the agreement, and what we're approving tonight is just the agreement between our organization, the TPCG, and TITA. As far as these other things, otherwise it would be very difficult for us to get an organization to be in charge of doing the reentry passes if they thought they could have some potential liability. Not that we want to do this. I agree with you completely on your thoughts concerning government. It's just that we have to look at where we are right now, and that's where I am, and that's what Tita is, and unfortunately, that's what we need to do. But thank you for your service to our community.
It. Thank you, sir. Mr. C. Wazan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're
If I
welcome,
may,
sir.
to legal, please.
Yes. Legal?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Alcock, have you read the indemnification on the back of this, or did you prepare it?
Jimmy DeGate and I worked on this. What we have in the packet is mutual indemnity between Terrebonne Parish government and TITA. This isn't the document that the individuals are asked to sign. That's something that TITA worked up a whole program, but I'm sure they are asking for some indemnity for allowing people in during a time when it's a state of emergency.
A couple of questions. Once again, did you read the form?
Yes.
And what's your take on the what TITA's asking for indemnification?
Well, I support it. I mean, we are letting people in at a time when we don't think it's safe to let the general public in. So, there's definitely a safety issue at that time, and we're doing it to spur the economy.
In reading it, what's the timeline? How long after ground zero, are these people
The badge
indemnifying
program.
the parish?
The badge program is only activated, according to this cooperative endeavor, by the parish president or his designee, and he may do it in conjunction with, after a declaration of emergency, when it's deemed safe enough to begin to let the different tiers in, and the badges would remain in effect until the parish is authorized for reentry by the general public. So
And
it's
it states that?
I think it does, yes.
Because I haven't seen it, and that's why I'm asking. I mean, how long is the indemnification, of the parish to citizens of Terrebonne Parish? How long is it in place? And you're saying until the general public is available?
Right, it's for when they re-enter the parish at a time when others are not allowed in.
And one other quick question. Can the parish president form this endeavor with TITA without the council's permission or resolution?
Well, there's no money involved. I think it's a courtesy thing. However, it's part of our hurricane plan. So I think they, as a courtesy to the council, they want to let you know everything that's going on with our hurricane planning.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome, sir. I see we have our OEP director. Would you like to weigh on them, Mr. Hughes? You don't have to, but if you like to, I certainly love to hear you.
Earl Hughes, Office of Emergency Preparedness. Basically, during Gustav and Ike, we had some issues about letting the businesses back in. At that point, TITA volunteered to step up and say, look, we can take care of the business. That's what we do. At that point, the sheriff allowed TITA to come up with this program. We do need a way to get those people from certain businesses, contractors, utility contractors, people that have assets in this parish that they need to tend to immediately or further damage will be caused. There needs to be a way to get these people back into the parish. This is the way that we thought would be the best and easiest way to get these people back into the parish, is through a badge program. Other parishes aren't using a badge program. They're using the state police program, which our plan is based after, but we are issuing a badge. Otherwise, they're going to need a letter on letterhead from their company, a marked truck or car to get back in, and identification, which could be a driver's license. Our badge program is going to eliminate that letter and that car issue, a marked vehicle. I have gone around to all our parishes that surround us and in our region to ask them to allow those badges to pass through those parishes without asking for any other documentation, since we've already done that. So it's needed. So Tita's done a great job, and yes, there are some issues. For instance, during the flooding incident, we had a manhole cover pop up in the road, and a car ran into that manhole cover. Okay, so there are issues that can happen during a time of an emergency, which, you know, we're letting people back in when we know it's not safe to come back in, because if it was safe, we'd let the whole general public back in. So I think the indemnification agreement is needed. The other issue is the badges, the placards that the sheriff's office issued out. That is just an identification that to let the sheriff's office and all the other law enforcement agencies know that you're in the right place after the storm. So if you have a colored badge for Bayou Du Large and you're driving around in Little Caillou, they can look at that badge and say, he's not in the right place. We need to see why is he here, and make sure that he's not doing any looting or other damage in the area. The sheriff's office is going to continue to issue those badges, those placards, which I think is needed, so we know that people are on the right bayous during an event when we allow those people to come back in.
And what was the cost of that badge?
It's not a badge; it's actually a hanging placard that goes on your
Is there a cost associated with that hanging
I'm not familiar with the cost.
Because the speaker mentioned that he paid a fee, and I just wanted to know.
I think the fee is an administrative cost to pay for the placard and the time for somebody to issue those out.
All right. Thank you. Hold on one second. Mr. Seahan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Earl, is the sheriff gonna issue re-entry passes to businesses, or is everybody gonna have to go through TITA?
Everybody needs to go through
The
TITA.
reason I'm asking, I know the sheriff's office did offer just like a little fax. No, it wasn't. I'm not talking about the colored placards for down the bayou folks. I'm talking about I had got one for our business owner to come back in, and it was just a fax on our letterhead for him to, his recognition at a roadblock, if you will, to get back in. But that's going to be eliminated, and everyone will have to have that Tier 1, Tier 2 card.
That's correct.
From TITA, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Earl.
In fact, TITA took care of issuing those letters for Gustav and Ike, for the sheriff.
All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Bourgeois, can you come back up for a minute? I just got one question I want to ask you. How much you said you paid for that badge at the sheriff's department?
I think there was a nominal charge of like $2 per badge.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, direction. Direction.
move the resolution.
Moved by Mr. Pizzolata, second by Mr. Hebert. Seeing no further discussion on this matter, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any nays? Ayes have it, motion carried. Item 2, resolution authorizing the parish president to sign a revocation and rescission of condemnation order for property located at 126 St. Louis Street.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Pizzolata.
Second.
Second by Mr. C. Wazan. Seeing no discussion on this matter, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it, motion carried. Item 3, resolution introducing an ordinance to revoke the dedication of public passage on the surface of Hannah Clare Drive, Marbury Estate subdivision, Phase M, and calling public hearing on said matter on April 22nd, 2009 at 6:30 p.m. Moved by K. Wazan.
Yeah, it's been handed out.
Yeah. Okay, to retain, and as noted, it's the modification as noted. Second by Mr. Sheehan. It's about this old
That's
light?
old. That's old.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion on this matter, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any nays? Ayes have it, motion carried. Item 4, resolution introducing an order to approving the acquisition of package for 7155 Shrimpers Road and obligating necessary funding to complete and calling public hearing on said matter on April 22nd, 2009 at 6:30 p.m. Moved by Mr. C. Wazan. Second by a host of members, so unanimous, I would have to call that. Ms. Cavalier.
Yes, I would just like explanation. Mr. Gordon, if the appraised value is 60,000, and why are we offering them 84?
Mr. Gordon?
see. Get to that offer sheet. See, the offer price is $60,450.
It's incorrect as listed, right?
Let's see, that's the offer calculation sheet.
60,000 offer, amount 84, appraised value.
It needs to be corrected.
I don't know, but I tell you what, I'll find out before Wednesday night for you.
Okay, because if it needs to be corrected, I mean, if it's in error, then we have to correct it before we can adopt it. I mean, the amount, we're adopting the amount that you have right here.
There may
Correct.
have been some other cost put into this that they paid, but I'll check on that and I'll get.
'Cause usually, I mean, what you've been bringing it before us before, they had an appraised value and it was a smaller amount.
Right.
So I'm just questioning this.
Well, sometimes it depends on which storm it was, because for Rita, they'll pick, the state picks up 15%, the non-federal share. But in other storms, they don't. The property owner has to put up the 15%. But I'm gonna find out the specifics on this.
But this is saying we're gonna give them $84,000 on an appraised value of $60,000.
Correct.
I can't support it until I have some clarification.
Point of order is called.
It is a
Mr. Wazan?
It's a resolution introducing an ordinance that comes back on the.
Right.
Sure, by Wednesday, Mr. Gordon can have our answer.
Absolutely.
These people have been waiting for some time, and I think it was additional cost, Mr. Gordon, is what I was told.
I'd like to ask legal,
Legal,
if we accept this tonight, does that hold us to this offer amount?
Mr. Alcott?
You revisit it on Wednesday, I think you could make the amendment at that time. It looks to me from the backup that the numbers are transposed, but, what? Do you wanna hold it until Wednesday?
Wednesday would be fine with me.
Okay.
I mean, the maker of the motion, though.
Yeah, if you don't mind, we can get back to you Wednesday.
I mean, I'm all in support if we, as long as we are giving them the right amount.
Okay. Gonna hold this, you wanna make talk with the maker of the motion if you
Maker
wanna
of the
hold.
motion. I'm looking for clarification, if you wanna hold it off till Wednesday.
No, ma'am, I'd like the motion to stand. Once again, it's going to ordinance, and if it is wrong by Wednesday, I'm sure Pat can make the determination of it.
Yes,
Okay.
I'll do it tomorrow.
That'd be fine, sir.
On, but I don't know if I should be.
Mr. Labat?
Wednesday night, y'all could just, when the minutes come to be ratified, y'all could just pull this particular resolution and re-adopt it with the corrected figure if it is wrong. So, I mean, it could be easily just pulled and redone on Wednesday night.
Mr. K. Wazan?
I just pointing to the backup, I mean, the appraisal clearly says that the appraised value is 84,600 with the cost approach. And the offer price clearly says in the backup that the offer price to homeowner is 60,450. I'd put a substitute motion that we transpose these numbers, and so we do as per. I mean, it's real clear, it's just opposite. So I'd put forth a substitute motion that we accept with the offer amount being
Of order
84,000.
call.
Oops, sorry.
What I would do, Mr. Kevin,
Wazan? See?
I would amend my motion to read as you say.
Oh, that's fine, yeah, that's fine, thank you.
If that's okay with the parliamentarian.
Mr. Labat? It's fine, okay. Second agrees? Yes. Okay, second agrees. All right, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? Ayes have it, motion carried. All right. Item 5, resolution authorizing the parish president, Michelle H. Claude, to enter into an agreement with Option for Independence to provide case management service following Hurricane Ike. Moved by Ms. Williams.
Second.
Second by Mr. Mr. Joy Seahan. Ms. Cavalier.
Mr. Ware?
Mr. Ware?
If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Ware?
Darrell Ware, Director of Housing and Human Services.
Nice to see you, Mr. Ware.
Mr. Ware, what I read is a wonderful idea. This is only though for people from Ike?
Yes, what we have is under the Disaster Housing Assistance Program, which we got approved, I think, in October with y'all to enter into with HUD. All people that have got housing assistance approved by FEMA and referred to HUD come over to us. And as a requirement of the agreement we have with HUD, case management is to be provided. And the reason is, it's a short-term program. It's going to end in March of 2010. So you have to come into the program. When you come in, you have to agree to case management, because if you're not in a position to be able to pay your rent fully by the end of that period, you may not be able to you may not end up being homeless. So what we're doing here is they're going to come in and help with case management if they're, say, not employed or underemployed or have other issues that need to be addressed. They're trying to get it done in that time period. So when our assistance will end, they should be able to be either back in their homes or being able to pay rent on their own if they weren't able to at the point in time we started this.
This, y'all, is very, very needed. At Evergreen, we have a lot of students who, after Ike and even after Rita, I remember it happened, that got moved into trailer parks in the north, and they were working on their homes in the southern part. Well, because FEMA was so late with their payments, Road Home never came home, they were having to move in with relatives, those who didn't have relatives. And like you said, we were having to call shelters and try and find places. And we're the school system. I mean, it was very, very sad. So I really think that this is something that the need arose, and I'm really proud that we are doing something like this. I hope that this agency is, able to keep up with the demand that is there. I saw where it participates in the tracking. So we already have this information. We just need to follow up on these people. I can tell you right now, I know of 3 or 4 students that I have that are living and they are trying to get back down the bayou. And, I'm hoping with the warmer weather that they're more able to secure their homes and that we don't have another hurricane this year to stop them. The only thing that I had a question about was, during the interview process, if you see there are other needs, and they talked about mental and the employment, and such, that they'll be referred to the outside agencies. How will we follow up with those outside agencies? We just be looking at
Well,
where they're referred?
There's a
or?
referral and there's a tracking method that goes on in the process. As what happens is the person, once they're referred over, they'll have to track what goes on because it'll be a monthly. They're going to have to check on them monthly. And depending upon the need of the person may require more tracking than others. But what they're going to do is every month they're going to be required to put information into the system. And they've already went to some training that HUD had prior to this contract going into force, because we were put on a time frame to try to get this in place. And HUD has been, pushing the timetables to get the training ahead of time so that we could fall into place when we start deducting off of their rent come May. We're going to start dropping $50 a month off of what we pay. So every month, we're going to add another $50 that's on their back to pay. So in that process, they're going to be along in the case management working with them. So it is imperative that they start the process as soon as possible.
So hopefully we won't have the Katrina people that, 4.5 years after the event are still on FEMA subsidies and can't find,
Correct. We have some people right now that we're transitioning that were Katrina affected that we're still working with right now that are being transferred into other services. So this is trying to avoid that.
Let me ask you, and then I'll let you, I know it's late. Will this also track attendance in school truancy? Because, and I'm not singularly putting them in a category, but I have some truancy issues with students who are hurricane evacuees, and they're in a new place and they don't feel comfortable. I mean, I understand the what's going on with the dynamics, but I also know that I don't have the access to the services to support me. I don't have phone numbers. I don't have families. I can call up grandma because I know who she is, and I can find out why her grandchild isn't in school, and she can explain. But with new families, I don't have that resource. So would this agency also be looking at that when they do the family needs assessment?
They're gonna be doing needs assessments, but I don't think they're gonna necessarily be tracking truancy when children don't go to schools, per se. But I think what's gonna be done as they meet with the families, they're gonna try to determine what are the needs or issues they're having. I mean, it's not necessarily a tracking program to determine if kids are going to school or not, because the whole thing is designed to move them into the position, either, like I said, to find out, what's their plan to get back into the housing, what did they have before the storm, or if they were renters and they were having problems with paying their rents before this is to try to make sure that the persons that are involved in this program, because some of the residents here may end up being actually some of the public housing residents that got flooded for Ike that may be in this program also. So this is going to give them some other services in addition to what they normally would get.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ware. Okay, thank you.
Okay, see no other lights here. Be no other discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? Ayes have it. Motion carried. Item 6, resolution authorizing the filing of an application with the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development for a grant under 49 CFR 5311. A non-urbanized area formula program and or 49 CFR 5309 discretionary capital project. Moved by Mr. Sehan, second by Ms. Williams. Seeing no discussion on this matter, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? Ayes have it, motion carried. Motion to adjourn by Mr. K. Wazan, second by Ms. Williams. Seeing no discussion, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? Ayes have it, motion carried. Good evening.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.